Hey,
Hi,
Deb.
Ashley.
Hi.
Since we're doing things a little different, I do have you guys live streaming right this second. So just so you know,
Oh,
I needed to
okay.
test it today, just so you are aware.
Live streaming for YouTube.
Yep,
So we're live.
we are live. Yep.
Awesome.
And
Hello, Peninsula School District.
I might be the only viewer. So and I want to test to make
Hello,
sure.
Chris Hagel.
There you go. I'll make sure that the website works.
Lori, you made it home on time.
Barely.
Yeah. And we are, Chris just said that we're live YouTube right now. So
Hi, Chris.
Hello.
hi, Mr. Olson.
Hello, Ms. Christensen.
Ashley, welcome back.
Thank you.
Art, I look like I had a fly on my collar. Sorry.
Tuck it in. You won't have to worry about it. Just stay calm. Don't whack it off or anything like that. Just, maybe it'll go viral.
David, I've told people that it helps at times not to have any hair. I would feel the landing strip.
I'm sure that because they were on TV and everything, they probably had half a can of hairspray on there. So he probably didn't even feel it land on him, so. But it didn't move. It wasn't like walking all over his head. So I think it just lighted and he didn't feel it. And
It was stuck
unfortunately,
there.
it stayed there for too long.
It was stuck there
Sat there in a
forever.
hat. Yeah. If it was bipartisan, it would have flown over and landed on her hair next.
I'm not even going to go there, David.
No, and we are live. Ah. 2 nights. Yes, I have my. No, that would be like this.
Oh,
Have to be solid.
well, at least it's not. Yeah.
Looks better in person. Hi, dog. It's Maggie.
Mr. West is on the road.
I am. So I'm gonna, when I start here, I'll mute everything, but I'll be home in just probably a minute after the meeting starts. How are you doing, Art?
I'm doing well. All things considered, I'm doing well.
Yeah.
I think. Connor Flaherty, welcome. You broke up on that one, Chuck.
Oh, he looks like he's frozen.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Uh-oh, am I?
No, you're not now. You're good.
Now you're breaking up. It won't hurt if you miss the Pledge of Allegiance.
Looking at the backside of my mirror.
Yeah.
2 minutes.
I mounted. I'll say it anyway. Well, when I got all those cancellations for the meeting, I thought, well, maybe we're going to meet in person.
We only wish.
I was pretty hopeful.
The governor says not yet.
We don't have Natalie online yet, do we?
We do not.
Okay. And
We
we've
could
got,
hold our meetings at the movie. Hey, Art, we could hold our meetings at the movie theater.
I don't know what the spacing requirements are, but you're right.
Yeah.
I've got some nice chairs.
Now showing Peninsula School Board.
we've got one dark square. Does anyone know who that is with no name?
Is that me? I've turned my camera off.
No, you're good.
I think
We
it's
have
mine.
Tanya.
It always signs me in.
Signed you in twice. Okay.
And I hid all of the ones that have no camera on, so nobody sees them on the live stream. So it's just you guys that would see it.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Tyson Brent,
Natalie.
welcome.
Natalie told me earlier she was going to join, so hopefully she'll
Yep.
join.
That was her as well. So I'll give her one more minute and then we'll get going.
Looks like Tanya is struggling a little bit. Her audio hasn't come on yet.
Is Natalie back home yet?
She is.
Yep, she's on. She's trying to
There
connect.
she is.
Just on.
Natalie, you're supposed to be laying in a bed with your knee up or something.
That's why I have my pajamas on.
Okay.
And you won't see my leg.
Good.
Dramatic right here.
Okay, so I've got all 5 board members and I think we will get going, and we've got our 3 reps on, so I'm gonna get going. I call the October 8th, 2020 Peninsula School District Board of Directors study session to order. I ask Ashley Phillips to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag.
Of the United States of
United States of
America
America.
and the republic for which it
The
stands,
Republic,
one
which
nation,
stands
under God,
God,
indivisible,
invisible,
liberty
liberty and
and
justice for all.
for all.
We had a couple choruses going on that one. That's great. Thank you. All right. On March 24th, 2020, the leadership of Washington legislature issued statutory waivers and suspensions related to the Open Public Meetings Act and the Public Records Act. The waivers and suspensions have been extended multiple times, most currently with Proclamation 20-28-11, which extends these waivers and suspensions until November 9th, 2020. In accordance with Proclamation 20-28.11, the Peninsula School District Board of Directors is prohibited from conducting meetings in person. Therefore, this study session will be held virtually. Prior notice has been given to the community regarding how to watch this meeting live stream online and how to listen to the meeting through the telephone. So I just want to make sure everyone is very clear. Our board would like to be meeting in person. It is just legally, we are not allowed to because we can't limit the number of people that can attend, and that would cause issues with social distancing. So at this time, we have to meet Zoom, but as soon as we possibly can, our board will be back in public. With regard to routine matters, the board members have reviewed the agenda and have had the opportunity to clarify questions with the superintendent prior to the board meeting. Such matters are often processed without additional comment or debate. With that, are there any changes to the agenda? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to
So moved.
adjourn.
Thank you, Chuck. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved by Chuck and seconded by Lori to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? The motion is carried. The agenda is approved. I'd like to take this time to introduce our student board representatives. As a reminder, this is our 5th year of having student voices on our board, and our board and district are so thrilled to have this voice and this perspective in our meetings and as we make decisions for the district. And it's so important to have, we've had such great experiences with our board reps in the past. And we're thrilled to have 3 representatives tonight with us. I introduced our first one from Henderson Bay High School, Ashley Phillips. She's actually returning. She was on our board last year as well. We are thrilled to continue to work with her as she represents Henderson Bay High School. She's a senior and is very involved in her school and community. She has served as president for Interact Rotary Club and volunteers for many fundraisers such as Chew and the Angel Tree. She's also traveled to work at an orphanage in Guatemala in the past, and we are just thrilled to have you continue to represent Henderson Bay High School on our board. Ashley, welcome, and do you have any words that you'd like to share with us?
Hi, I'm very excited for this year. This is going to be my 2nd year on the school board, and it's going to be a great year. It's going to be a lot different than usual years, but I'm excited to see where this takes me and what I learned from it. But a little bit about how online's been going for our school is, I think at first it was really hard for a lot of kids because they were a little bit disappointed that we're not going to be able to go to school every day and see our friends. But I think it's been good so far. I've really got to learn how to use the online programs that we have, like Google Docs and Schoology. I didn't know how to use Schoology at all before we did this, and now I feel very comfortable using it. And I think it's a really good resource that our district has because it's all that you need for your school in one spot. You get your grades there. You can just click on a course, you get all your assignments, and it's super easy to keep track of what you're doing instead of trying to have different programs going. So I think that's been very good for us. And yeah.
Great. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you. And next, we have Tyson Brent, who will be representing Peninsula High School as this year's student board representative. He's also a senior at Peninsula High School and attended Harbor Ridge Middle School and Purdy Elementary in the past. Tyson has been very active in leadership over the years, including serving as the elected Peninsula High School 2020-21 ASB president. So congratulations, Tyson. He and the leadership team are helping make the most of the year, even though things have changed and have been postponed in a lot of situations. Tyson is also active athlete, both on school and community soccer teams. We welcome Tyson and look forward to your input and your perspective as a student. So thank you. And any thoughts from you?
I would just like to say thank you to all of you for giving me this opportunity to be the student representative. I think it's going to be a great experience and it'll be a lot of fun. Peninsula High School is doing well, I think, with the online situation. Of course, we were all disappointed in the very beginning that we had to be online and not in person, but I think we're trying to make the most of it right now. And we have our virtual assembly tomorrow, our first welcome back assembly held over a virtual YouTube live thing. And so we're just trying to make it as normal as possible. And I think we're going to do a great job.
Awesome. Tyson, what time is that assembly and can anyone log in to see it?
Yes, I can. The link will be on Schoology I can send it to you, Deb.
That'd be great. I'll get out to the board because it'd be fun for us to
There,
see.
it'll be, yeah, it'll premiere at noon, but you can watch it anytime after that.
Awesome. Oh, cool. Something different to look forward to. So thanks, Tyson, and welcome. And I am going to have Natalie Wimberly introduce Gig Harbor High School representative.
Okay, I am so excited to introduce Connor Flaherty to the board as this year's Gig Harbor High School student representative. Connor is a senior also at Gig Harbor High School, wrapping up his PSD career after spending years at Kopachuk Middle School and also Harbor Heights and Voyager Elementary Schools. And I have learned that Connor is no stranger to serving his community when he's not studying, playing football or baseball, or organizing events for the Tides leadership class, or admiring his University of Texas flag. You can find him volunteering for organizations like SUP that support our schools, and also through the Gig Harbor Little League. He's already shown a sincere leadership spirit by really just stepping up to do this. And he's asked if he could be a voice for the students at Gig Harbor High School, and is eager to reach out to a lot of kids and make sure that everyone is represented. So Connor, we're super excited to have you.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to, obviously learn how to do something like this, and obviously learn from all of you. I feel like that'd be a great experience for me. As for Gig Harbor High School, I really feel like a lot of my words were already said by the previous two representatives. Obviously, not the greatest way of going to school. Everybody a little bit disappointed, but I feel like we're starting to adapt, and especially I wanted to kind of highlight the teachers and how kind of forgiving they've been with us, and how they're also having technology issues and stuff like that, and we're all trying to learn it as a community. And I really feel like we're able to hopefully move forward as as a united kind of force.
Awesome. Thank you, guys, and welcome. We truly are excited to have our student voices heard, and especially this year with all of the new things coming at us, to see what it really looks like in schools is helpful. So thank you very much. Moving on to item 5.1, policy revision, first reading 3207, prohibition of harassment, intimidation, and bullying, 3207P. This policy is a policy change first reading. No board action is required. If board members wish to make amendments to the policy as presented, please submit those to the superintendent within a reasonable amount of time prior to the final reading and potential adoption at our next board meeting later in October. Item 5.2, approval of amendment number 3 to TCF architecture contract for work at Pioneer Elementary School. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
Second.
Natalie, thank you. It was moved by David and seconded by Natalie to approve item 5.2. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? The motion has been approved. Item 5.3, approval of contracts to CCF Architecture for both Key Peninsula and Kopachuk Middle School modernization projects. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thanks, Natalie. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank
I'll
you,
second that.
Lori. It has been moved by Natalie and seconded by Lori to approve item 5.3. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? The motion is carried. Item 5.3 has been approved. Item 5.4, approval of agreement to a temporary easement to WSDOT. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Lori. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Chuck. It's been moved by Lori and seconded by Chuck to approve item 5.4. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? The motion is carried. Item 5.4 has been approved. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda prior to the vote? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Chuck. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Natalie. It's been moved by Chuck and seconded by Natalie to approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is carried. Consent agenda has been approved. With that, Dr. Jarvis, I begin our study session with the capital projects update. If you'd like to introduce, or do you want to move directly to Patrick?
It is always fun to reintroduce to you the hardworking people that are causing all of the buildings to rise around the district. So we start with Mr. Patrick Gillespie as our Director of Capital Projects. He and friends are here to give us a broad update on the capital projects, and particularly looking towards the middle schools that you just approved for architectural services to look at where we're heading and how we got there. So Mr. Gillespie, are you with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So thank you for having us. Welcome to the new high school board representatives to this process. Jeff Green and Vicky are here as well. They're as part of the spirit of social distancing. They're further away from me, but they're here if we need them to chime in at any point. So I have a PowerPoint I'm going to bring up here to go through the presentation. Maybe. It says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Try it now.
Okay, hold on one second. There we go. And look at that. Hey, I got it up even. So we're talking about the middle school modernization update. And what we kind of want to do is kind of go through a little bit of the memory lane part of this, of how we got there, because I think it's an important piece to kind of remember. So we're going to kind of start there, is the bond promise from 2019. So if you recall the original bond promise from when we started that process, it was built 4 schools in 4 years. And it was out there in quite a different formats with that. And so with that 4 schools in 4 years, the bond promise was to replace Artendale and Evergreen with two of the oldest schools in the district with added capacity, construction of 2 new elementary schools, and address the most critical emergent needs that require work during the term of the 2019 bond issue. At that time, ES9 and Artendale were to be completed in the fall of 2022, and ES10 and Evergreen were to be completed in the fall of 2023. After that, Boys and Girls Club building came available, and with good foresight, the board approved the purchase of the building, which will become Pioneer Elementary School, the district's first STEM school in the district. The purchase allowed PSD to consider a more aggressive construction schedule for all 4 elementary schools to be completed much earlier than the original promise. So right before the bond passed, the timelines kind of changed to ES9 fall of 2021. I'm sorry, let's see, add new school number 9, 2021, school number 10, 2022, Artendale 2021, and Evergreen 2022. Currently where we're at is Pioneer bid December 2019. It is scheduled for completion in January 2021. ES9 bid February 2022, scheduled for completion summer 2021. Artendale bid May 2020, scheduled for completion fall 2021. Evergreen bid May of 2020, scheduled for completion fall of 2021. That's 4 schools in 2 years, 2.5 technically, but it's really moved those timelines up. And we want people to remember that what the bond promise was and how much faster we're doing that. And that's going to be important to remember as we get to further along in this presentation. So the bond promise, build 2 new elementary schools, doing that right now. Replace 2 existing elementary schools, doing that right now. Additional classrooms at the elementary level, doing that right now as well, at both the existing schools and the 2 brand new, adding new classrooms. That leaves us with the emergent needs piece of the bond promise. As we evaluated the needs of the district for the emergent needs, sorry, kind of lost my place there. The anticipated emergent needs are concentrated in just 2 of the remaining schools. It was identified the cost of addressing emergent needs at the 2 schools is about half the cost of qualifying for SCAP dollars. Qualifying for SCAP dollars would allow the district to leverage 2019 bond dollars for a larger scope of work, and emergent needs, yeah, I'm sorry, Jeff's chiming in here. Emergent needs remaining schools will be addressed using general fund until funds are available in the future. So SCAP dollars are school construction assistant program, and those are dollars we qualify for doing a larger project. So we've qualified for that on 3 of our projects, which I'll get to a little bit later. So how are we going to address the emergent needs promised from the bond? What we're doing is we're doing the modernization of our 2 oldest middle schools. How does this benefit the students of the community? Students and community and the staff. It addresses emergent needs at the 2 oldest middle schools. It addresses the anticipated capacity needs at the middle school level by adding additional classrooms, creates space for current and future educational programs, updates the exterior to better represent our communities, refresh the interiors for a better learning environment. And how are we funding the middle schools? So we are funding them with the state match dollars we talked about on those projects. At Artendale and Evergreen, we had unexpected state match dollars from ES9 due to higher than expected enrollment numbers. So we were able to gain SCAP dollars there. State match dollars for KPMS and Kopachuk. The rapid design and permitting schedules have allowed PSD to avoid some expected inflation costs, which is part of what we started with doing the schools instead of 4 schools in 4 years, doing 4 schools in 2.5 years. Pooling the emergent need dollars into these 2 schools from the 2019 bond, impact fees from new construction to fund the additional capacity being provided. And then we'll also on the projects be using alternates to control the costs to make sure we stay on budget within these projects. The 2019 bond issue is being leveraged into addressing building needs at 6 of the district's oldest school. There remains a significant amount of work to address in the district's remaining facilities prior to the 2019 bond issue. Nearly all the district facilities were eligible for SCAP funding, i.e. they had not had any significant improvements over the last 30 years. Updating those schools and district support facilities remain for the future community funding. So I'm gonna go back. So we're gonna look at now is I'm gonna show you the floor plans and kind of walk through what we're doing at each of the schools. And then Brian Ho's on here as well. When we're done with that, he'll show us some renderings of potential options that we're looking at for how we're going to update that look of the exterior of the building to better represent our communities. So on this one here, let's see if I can try and, there we go. This is Kopachuk Elementary School. So what we're doing is we're kind of taking care of getting rid of a couple of old rooms that were photography dark rooms, adding more capacity into the kitchen area, updating the CT spaces, your art room, your wood shop, taking a room here that was kind of not used in its original function anymore, which was the home ec room. To get 2 classrooms, we're extending that out a little bit. You can see here in the gold bar. And that way we get 2 identifiable classrooms will be around 880 to 900 square feet. We'll be looking at the science rooms and updating those. We're taking the admin area and moving it to the front of the building, which will be an addition, which then allows us to add a classroom space where the admin was, actually 2 classrooms. We're going to take the part of the library and turn it into another classroom. We've heard from the principals that there's some benefit to that. And an alternate that we are looking at Kopachuk is adding 2 additional classrooms on the end over here, which will allow us to gain a few more classrooms. So this will allow us to gain 4 additional classrooms. If we take the alternate, it would be 6 additional classrooms that we would gain by doing this modernization at Kopachuk. Any questions on the floor plan? Oh, one of the things to note too is we're going to be doing some significant rework in the music room and the choir room to make sure we get acoustical needs met, and some other things that are kind of lacking in those rooms as well.
Hey, Patrick.
Right, and I'm sorry. Yep, go ahead, David.
You were mentioning if you move forward with the 2 additional classrooms, how would that affect the overall cost of the 2 middle schools? I know we had the money saved from the rapid building of the 4 elementary schools, but how will that impact the cost of the upgrading Kopachuk?
So we have a cost model. Let me have Jeff chime in just a little bit when we get to that piece.
So
you mind?
We're working from a cost model at the present time. We'll be completing schematic design later in October and actually have a formal cost estimate. And we'll be able at that point to share with you more specifically how we intend this to be done. But at the moment, we believe these are all within the budget that we've got established that's been funded through the sources that Patrick's identified. So it's just a little bit early. We'll keep alternates because this is the end of our bond issue. So these projects will have alternates that we may not be able to get all of the alternates depending on the bidding environment next April and May.
So the driving force of adding those 2 additional classrooms will be if there's budget within the current bond that we have.
Yeah, that's one of the driving factors for sure. There's some other issues that we need to look at with the site and whether we have enough impervious, or if we can add more impervious space to the site. So we're still, we have a meeting with the county to go over some of those things in the coming weeks. So we should have more answers on that as we move forward as well.
Any other questions for Pat? Chuck? Unmute you.
Oh, there you go. Okay. 2 questions. One is, I know we're talking about adding space, but we also have some systems upgrades that need to happen with HVAC. And I know at KPMS we had a water system issue. So I'm sure that those things are being addressed also as probably part of the priorities before we even get into the additions.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I kind of glossed over that a little bit and I apologize. So yeah, with this, the emergent needs pieces would be all those infrastructure pieces. So we'd be looking at the roof, HVAC, boilers, the large on-site septic system, the water system, all of those things. Yeah, electrical. The gear switches are old, and so we'll be updating those. So there's all those components are things that are in there. The paging system. There's a few that I'm leaving out here, but those are all in our matrix of what we're doing, and those are the top priorities. That was the emergent needs piece. It's all the other things that are the bonus of doing the project. By doing a major modernization, we gain those additional SCAP dollars that allow us then to not only do the emergent need pieces, but to be able to do the add-ons to gain the additional space and to be able to do some of the other things that will help make the building a nicer and a better learning environment for our students.
Okay. And then the other question I had was, you mentioned the home ec rooms. Were they being eliminated, or were we, I kind of hope we have home ec still. But
Yeah, they're being eliminated. We've been working with our schools and principals, and although they're home ec rooms, they're not used for home ec. They're in the way.
Okay.
They're things that just aren't functioning and using the way that we're doing school today. So when we look at the future and how we do it, we're trying to make sure we get all those pieces. We know wood shop skilled trades is important, so we're working closely with Aaron O'Neill on what that looks like. We've been talking with the wood shop teacher, the art teachers, trying to make sure we get those areas dialed in for those CT and skilled trades type programs.
Okay. And we're considering also like a computer systems area with, I would assume we have a computer lab now. And I know at KPMS they're teaching code classes. I would hope that there's same thing offered at Kopachuk.
Yeah, so there's two computer rooms. One is they have computers in the library, and then I believe each school has a Mac lab set up. So we have identified these as classrooms, but you can use a classroom in any way you want. So one of the classrooms will probably be identified, and we'll work with the principals of two schools, and we'll be making sure that there's plenty of outlets in those rooms to handle those computers. And I think they've identified one or two rooms that might have some of that. So those are pieces we're still kind of trying to make sure we get dialed in correctly. But yes, what we've heard is there's at least one, maybe two computer rooms that will be in here. And that'll really be kind of depending on what the programming is for the school and what the principals decide goes in which room. So when you look at it, we just identify them as classrooms, and how you use them will really be up to the school to best determine that.
Okay, so there is hope for home ec then.
I'm gonna be careful to talk. That would be a Dan John Arts. I don't mean to throw him under the bus. I'm just working on the programming we've been given as we move forward.
Okay, thank
We
you.
can use your kitchen, Chuck.
Bring them on. We can take them to the fire station.
Patrick, I'm here. I was glad to hear you talking about the paging system. I'm sure there was other kind of safety considerations as you're building out this school to think about future safety for the students and staff.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Ted. So if you look at what we're doing at the elementary schools with the secure vestibules, we're bringing that same concept into the middle schools, where you would be able to enter in, go into the main office, and then from the main office, you would be buzzed into the school if you were determined that you should be into the main school. So we'll have a system very similar to what you'll see at the elementary schools that we're currently building.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions?
I think you and Chuck have touched on what I was going to ask. Security was one, and then water also was another one. I know that the Kopachuk leadership class has been asking to get water filtration or water bottle filling stations put in. So I'm wondering if that's something that can be accommodated. And I also know that they have a really engaged parent group there that have been spending money on some big ticket items like furniture for the school. So would like to see or know if they're being involved in the planning. And I know you said it'll be school specific, but curious if we've brought parents and families and students in yet on these decisions.
So the water bottle fill stations we're putting in every new school. So these schools will have one. Kopachuk has one we installed this last summer or spring, somewhere in there. But both of these projects will have them just like the elementary schools. We're trying to get them out to all of the schools as we can, even the existing ones. Furniture, there is a line item for furniture. So that's one that usually what we were doing at the elementary schools is Vicky's been working with the principals and staff, and they help to pick the furniture. We've brought throughout the summer, we've worked through Zoom meetings with staff, kind of gone over what the needs are. So a lot of what you see is packaged in here is from those those meetings and brought into the building to make it what meets the needs of the school. And when it comes to furniture, I don't know how the principals will do that. They could bring students in and get input from them. I think at the middle school level, that's a good idea. But I just can't speak for Heidi and Jerry on how they'll do that, but I can definitely make sure that they're aware of that recommendation.
Great, thank you.
Excellent. Okay,
Okay.
gonna move forward.
Yep, so the next floor plan is Key Peninsula Middle School. So although they're very similar schools, there's a few differences within them. And I'm gonna highlight the differences on these schools, and then most of the other things are the same. We're looking at it as one of the alternates would be in addition to the gym. So when you look at Kopachuk versus KPMS, is that Kopachuk has a double gym and KPMS has a gym and a half. So we're looking at, can we extend the gym to make it 2 full gyms, which would be in line with what you have at Kopachuk. Again, we're moving the admin to the front of the building, bringing classrooms into the middle of the building, just as we were with Kopachuk. Same scenario with the home ec room. The difference with this home rec room is at some point it was already extended out. And so we don't need to do the extension there like we're doing at Kopachuk. We have an options program at KPMS, and where at Kopachuk, we're looking at creating in this same area here, a science wing. It's been really pretty clear from the staff at that building that this is a good spot for those options programs. So we're taking some rooms that are in here and we're going to incorporate it into that area. We're going to have it where there's, therapy swings. There's going to be, they've asked for a little kitchenette where they can teach those life skills. There's other things that they've asked for that we're going to try and incorporate in there as well. So that's what you're going to find in this area. We'll have the 2 science rooms here, and we're going to have 2 science rooms that we're going to move into this area, which means we'll have to reconfigure them to handle science. At this school, we're looking at, instead of a 2 classroom addition, a 4 classroom addition that goes here. The entry point would be at an exit point, not necessarily an entry point, exit point here. And that would leave like a little flex space or office area down here. As I'm talking about that doors, Deb, another safety security piece that we're looking at on these projects is like we've done at the elementary schools, is card swipes on all the exterior doors where you would have access from staff, as well as security cameras. So those are 2 additional pieces that you might want to be aware of with the safety and security piece. So although they're very similar buildings, they'll get a similar but different additions and remodel pieces in it, depending on what the needs were at the school and how the staff identified it. We think that this is really a good layout based on all those recommendations, and TCF did a nice job pulling those together. We've gone through a lot of renditions on it. We had a great conversation with staff out there a few weeks ago that really kind of helped dial a few more of those pieces in. And I'm really excited about where we've landed on the floor plans of both of these schools.
Awesome.
Any questions about KPMS's floor plan or any of the things we're doing there?
And
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Lori.
Can you refresh me, Patrick, in both of these buildings, is the admin space currently in the middle where the classrooms are by the library?
Yeah, the admin is right here. If you can, I'm assuming you can see my pointer. The admin's right in this area here. So it'll be classroom. We'll move the staff room here, which is currently more in this area. There'll be some staff toilets here. And then this area we're working on, Heidi had a great concept where she wants to find an area for students with sensory things where at lunch they can go and kind of have a quiet place. And then also we're trying to make it where outside of lunch, it also kind of has a kind of a coffee bar feel, or maybe there's some tables and desks where can be additional learning experiences going on in that space as well. So we're working on developing that pieces at both of those schools.
Okay, great, thank you.
And I extend the question out to our students as well. I think some of you attended these schools. Any thoughts or questions aside from wish it would have happened while you were there? They're still on, right?
Yes.
Okay,
First meeting shyness.
that's okay. All right. Patrick, one thing I wanted to say is I'm thrilled not only in the new schools that you're building, the elementary schools, I see it in these plans, that there is room for PTAs and VPOs back in our schools. Being a part of a PTA in the past, I know we were shoved down to a closet and then actually to our own garages at home for any PTA storage. Our parents are so involved and so important in our schools. I'm glad to see that we're remembering that and putting that space in for them. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one other thing that I didn't mention is kind of timeline on these projects. So we're working on getting the design dialed in. The quick nuts and bolts of it is that we want to go out to bid in the springtime for these jobs, with these projects, and we want to be starting construction no later than summer of 2021. So that will then mean 6 schools in about 4 years.
Wow.
So
Wow.
we remember all the way back to the beginning of this presentation of what we were originally promised, 4 schools in 4 years. We're really getting a lot for that bond. And we really appreciate the board, moving that forward. So,
Madam President, go ahead. Could I just ask a question of Patrick?
Yes.
yeah, go ahead.
Patrick, would you and Jeff highlight the number of classrooms that are being added in total for middle schools? And the issue was that this spring, the board met to look at the long-range plan. And one of the questions that faced us is how do we meet the space requirements of the middle schools based on the projections? And I know you factored that in. Would you comment specifically on how many classrooms we may be able to add?
Right. So at KPMS, we're looking at, it'll be an add of 8 classrooms. And Kopachuk, it's 4 or 6, depending on whether we take the alternate. So that's 12 to 14 classrooms that will be added at the middle school level.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good point. Thank you so much.
So I don't want to forget, we got Brian on the line too. So we have some more. This is the really fun part about today is we get to show you some renderings of the exterior of the building. And Brian, are you there?
I sure am.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen so Brian can share his. So we're really looking forward tonight to kind of preface it before I turn it over to Brian is we're not looking for a decision on what we're doing at the schools. We're looking for input. Whether you want to digest it and kind of bring it back to us over the next few days or week would be great. We're also going to we have bigger boards of these in the office, arts office, you can come and take a look at so you can get a bigger view of it. And then we'll take those out to the school for input. On the 24th, we want to bring those recommendation of what we're doing at each school back to you and what we think it'll look like. When Brian shows it, keep in mind he's showing I believe he's going to show you kind of more of KPMS school, but it might have more blue. Any of these works for either school, so don't think that one's associated with one or the other. They can all go on any school. They could be different. They can be the same. We haven't really gone there. We're just looking for input. Brian, you ready to go?
And Brian, we have about 15 minutes and board, we have about 15 minutes so that we can have a 5-minute break before our 6 o'clock interviews.
All right, I'll flash through these pretty quickly and appreciate you having us here today. This is kind of the fun part. We've studied a number of different options for both schools, and these schools are definitely in need of a facelift. They're pretty nondescript, pretty monochromatic. So we're looking at, they have some good bones and good structure to them and some decent proportions as well. So I think there's some good things we can do. We've studied a whole bunch of different options and we've narrowed it down to 3, each have kind of built on the previous ones. And as Patrick said, really what we're looking for is tell us what you like about the different ones. We don't have to pick one A, B, or C today. But we want to know what are the elements that really resonate, maybe what doesn't, and then we can come back and continue to refine into the final concepts. Maybe both schools have the same concept in a different color. Maybe they have the same concept in the same color. Maybe they have totally different concepts. So we have 3 today. I'll go through them. As Patrick mentioned too, colors aren't particularly set. We can apply those however. So these are generally built on the KPMS approach because that has more going on the building, but the same type of strategies can be applied to Kopachuk as well. So get to my screen here so everyone can see what I'm looking at or what I'm sharing here. So concept A, this one is the approach here is using, and this is looking right at the main entry, and I've got kind of an existing photo here of what it looks like today. I know you're all familiar with it. Not exactly the same perspective, but very close. So this was utilizing a bold color and a big bold canopy. These buildings don't really have much for overhangs on them or much for canopies. So the thought here was if we want to try to make the main entry really obvious and visible, how can we do that? Utilizing the main admin addition with some materials and some colors that really draw your eye in, kind of contrast with some of the rest of the existing building. So this was using a bold color, using a big entry canopy element, and then using some modulation in the facade of the building to get a level of more human scale to it and a little bit more interest. And that kind of contrasts with a lot of the rest of the building, which is very, very flat and blocky. Got 3 views for each of these. This is backing up a little bit more. The reality is it'd be hard to ever get a view like this, but I think it's a really important one to see so you can see the entire context of the building. And so we've got the main entry in the middle here. And then we're picking up on some of that similar language across the rest of the facade. So at the gym, at KPMS, we have the opportunity as we expand that gym to utilize some windows and getting some daylight up high into the gym space. We've done this a number of times successfully. It's really nice to be able to get some daylight in there. You can do it through skylights or through vertical windows, using some of that same accent color material. And then on the right side where we would have an addition for the classrooms, picking up again on some of that same architectural language that we have at the main entry to balance out the rest of the building. But then also where the existing classroom wing is picking up a little bit. You know, we don't have the budget to fully reclad and address every surface on the existing building, certainly to paint it, but where we can strategically spend a little bit to highlight some of these entry points and recesses into classroom windows to help the whole building read more as a whole rather than the existing with some additions tacked onto it. And then this is a view looking back the other side of the main entry. I'm going to run through all these. I've got a final slide that shows the three concepts on one slide. Happy to come back to any of them at any point if you'd like me to. Concept B, so this one uses a little bit more subdued palette, but certainly still an accent color. Introduces some more natural feeling materials, kind of like at Evergreen. We've used a kind of a faux wood material to bring again some of that natural feel and contrast again to the concrete that the existing building is constructed of. Also introduced some column elements in this one to again bring a finer level of detail, contrasting with the heavy blockiness of the existing building. Looking at some signage elements that could be part of the main entry here as well. So this, like the last one, is relying on a large canopy to really draw your eye into the entry and main entry point of the facility. You can also start to see in the next view, I'll show this a little bit more, the idea of adding a canopy over at the gym, since that's used for after hours and activity type of use, that could be a benefit to getting canopy space over there. Backing out a little bit, you can see a little bit more about what that canopy could look like at the gym. This could be accomplished at either of the buildings. And then grabbing some of that same language and elements to address portions of the existing building. Most of it would get really a paint job, but then focusing some of our efforts and funds on entry points or access points to really exit points, I guess, to the existing classroom wing, and then where we would do an addition, a similar architectural element there. And then the third concept, this one uses a smaller canopy. It still has some height to it, but really trying to focus in on the one main entry door piece, and the rest of the addition doesn't have that canopy like in the last two, but this one does start to really emphasize that front door a little bit more. In this case, the idea was to use a color that we might use a single color, but pattern it with the siding so we get some shadow lines and get a little bit of differentiation, patterning, and texture into the new siding we put on. Backing up a little bit more, some idea of a little bit different way maybe to use some super graphics or some large graphics that could call out the name of the school, the mascot, just more of a graphic that would represent the school somewhere. That could be done at the gym or elsewhere on the facade. You can see in this case, taking that same siding patterning and running it across the classroom addition, but also across portions of the existing classroom area to, again, help to tie all the different parts and pieces of this existing building together. And then back with the gym in the foreground here. And then this final view just gives you that main entry view, so you can see everything together. I think it's really helpful to kind of see the contrast of the three there. And so again, happy to, I went through those really quickly with the time we have, but happy to flip back to any of them if you like, but very interested to see and hear what your feedback is on any of the three of these.
Any initial thoughts?
Oh,
David, go ahead. Sorry, Chuck.
that's okay.
Since we're running short, I'll just say that my least favorite would be C. That one doesn't jump off at me at all. I like the overhang concept of B, but I like the way A looks. And so my question for the gray and A, are those gray squares windows, and what's the small red square? Because at first I thought maybe those were all windows and it would be like, or all glass. So it'd be like the whole front office area would just be a huge piece of glass. And that would just be cool. But what are the gray squares where you just had your mouse and the little red boxes? What are those?
Yeah, so these would be windows, and these are pretty good sized windows into each office. The red squares would just be an accent frame within that window. It might be an operable component of that window.
Chuck?
So I like B. I like the wood. I like the overhangs. But I do like large letters, something to show pride in the school. Yeah. And I like keeping the windows simple. I realize there are a lot of costs into those windows when they get real specialty. So anything we can do to reduce the cost, keeping them simple, like you show in B, looks like a pretty simple window. And it looks nice.
Lori or Natalie?
Brian, I think they're beautiful. I love A and B, and it's remarkable to me how different and just vastly improved, basically the same building can look by just bringing that front out and adding a different, different look to it. So, but as far as, which one, that can be decided by students or staff or whatever. But I think A and B are both beautiful, and thank you.
Natalie?
Yeah, I would chime in and say I really love B. I love the wood accents. We've looked at Pioneer most recently, and I think we were all kind of blown away by just how beautiful that looks, and it's really representative of the Pacific Northwest. I think it fits really well with where those schools are both located. They're very woodsy. I do love the windows on the gym in A, so it would be nice to kind of pick and choose some of our favorite details and and build something that's just really amazing. But I know there's a lot of work that goes into these renderings. So it's getting exciting now. So thanks for providing this for us, because it's becoming real, something to shoot for.
Connor, any thoughts? Because I think one of these is your middle schools, correct?
Yes. I really like B. I like the overhang and the color of the wood. Like, I don't know if that's gonna be like obviously how you said that the colors aren't really gonna be like don't have to be in the final product, but I like the contrastness of the wood versus like the against like the whatever other material. I would like that look. So I like B a lot, but the other two also look pretty good as well. So
Thanks, Connor. Tyson or Ashley, anything?
I think they all look really good. I think you did a really good job on them. They look great. But B is definitely my personal favorite because, like Connor said, I really like the wood. It just grabs my attention a lot, and just the contrast is there. So I think B would definitely be my personal favorite.
And Ashley, if you have anything, if not, that's okay. Okay. I agree with a lot of what people said. Patrick, obviously, I would just like to make sure that whichever design we go with, it's really thought about in terms of long-term care, replacement of things. Like, I love the wood, but how is that in the Northwest in terms of keeping that upkeep? So I know you'll make those wise decisions. And then what Lori said, really getting feedback from the students and the teachers there and the community there so that that reflects there. Evergreen has had so much community input, and they are just so bought into their school, and I'd like that for those communities as well. So like all of our schools have been that we're building now. But I agree, A and B are beautiful. The focal point of the entry point really on any of them makes me really happy. Like, this is where you go into the school. We don't have that right now. So excellent work.
Thank you. Brian and his staff have been working hard on these, and they've been having fun with it. Just one of the things you mentioned, Deb, just there are great comments. We're jotting them all down over here. Thank you so much for those. The wood that you see, there are some cement type woods out there that look like wood, and that's probably what that would be. So yes, you know that I'm looking at the long term
I know you are.
part of the building to make sure that we don't have maintenance needs. And I know Brian has heard all those same comments throughout. So they put these buildings into that same lens that we talked about with the elementary schools. And they're really bringing those pieces that we wanted to make sure that the best possible buildings into these ones as well. So Brian, any other comments you have or follow-up questions that strike you from the board comments?
No, this was great. I think a lot of those comments parallel some of the conversations we've been having, and the next step for us is to go to the schools and to get input from those people who are living in these things every day. So we will take this feedback and we'll do some mixing and matching with the things that we heard today. We'll get it from the schools, and then we'll come back to you with the next version of these.
Okay, awesome.
I'd just like to say thank you to our community and the board for allowing us to do these projects. We're really excited about them. We're really excited to get them out to the students and our community and open them up much sooner than we anticipated when we ran the bonds. So I'd like to thank you to both the board, the community, and everybody involved in them. So thank you very much. And also, we're hoping to get the board into maybe tour a little ES9 at some point in the near future as well.
Okay. Well, Patrick, Capital Projects teams, Brian, Art, thank you very much. This is more than exciting. Thank you, Patrick, for reminding us of our original promise of the 4 schools in 4 years and what we're actually delivering and really maximizing our investment from our community. I think that shows great, and we're leveraging more state funding and bringing more state funding in. So those are really good. And I also, I heard Dr. Jarvis say this earlier, driving by the school construction sites, there's tons of cars there for the construction. And going on the sites, there's a lot of local workers at those sites. So we brought a lot of jobs to the community as well. So nice work on all. And Brian, the buildings are beautiful. Thank you. With that, if there's no more questions right now, I'm going to give us a 3-minute break in case anyone needs a break, and then we'll be back for our interviews when we start with JG Consulting. Is that okay with everyone? Awesome.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Hi, Jody. I think I waved to Jody.
Yes, my
Hi.
name is Jody. How are you?
Hi. Hi. We'll get going here in a few minutes. We just took a little couple-minute break before we started.
Okay, no problem.
You have, gosh, I don't have this in front of me. You have James with you, correct?
Yes, he's texting me.
Okay, very good.
Oh, let me just get rid of that. There.
Thank you for allowing us for this break, guys. And I think everyone's coming back now.
Oh, no worries. I just didn't want to be late. 6 o'clock.
You're great. David's back. That must be James. Okay. I think everyone is back. Perfect. Hi, I am Deb Krishnasen, and the board is here. We've got David Olson. You want to wave, David? David Olson, Lori Glover, Natalie Wimberly, and Chuck West. And we also have 3 student reps on our board, Tyson Brent, and Ashley Phillips, and Connor Flaherty. And then, of course, we have our superintendent, Dr. Jarvis. I am echoing to someone. Does someone have a live stream on? If someone's watching a video, can you mute yourself for right now? And we also have 3 student reps on our board, Tyson Brent.
There's definitely feedback.
So, oh, perfect. If there's a live stream somewhere and it's in the background, it'll show it. So, also we have Tanya Beatty on with us tonight, and Chris Hagel Chris Hagel's our tech guru extraordinaire, and Tanya is our wonderful executive assistant. And who else do we have online with us tonight? I think that is it. And actually, Ashley is left. Okay, so Jody Huff and James Guerra, is that how you say that?
Guerra or Guerra, whatever you prefer, it's fine with me.
Perfect. All right, well, you're with JG Consulting, and thank you for your proposal, and we look forward to your presentation and follow-up questions from the board.
Absolutely. First and foremost, thank you. We're honored to be here with you this evening. So young scholars, Superintendent Jarvis, it's nice to see everybody here virtually. My name is James Guerra. I'm the president and CEO of JG Consulting. I've represented and founded the firm approximately 6 years ago last week. So we celebrated our 6-year anniversary just this past week. So I want to thank you for your service to the Peninsula School District. Thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit more about ourselves, the work that we do, the engagements that we've supported over the past 6 years, and we look forward to answering any questions that you may have. Now, we have prepared a short prezi that I'd like to just go through with you very quickly in the 10 minutes that we have to present, and then answer any questions you might have. But before doing so, would love to give Jody, my colleague, an opportunity to introduce herself, and then we'll get started.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for allowing JG Consulting to interview for this process. We're very excited about that. So here's a little bit about me. I've been in education for over 34 years, and I've worked in both small and large school districts, public school systems, including the Department of Defense dependent schools in the Philippines, as well as the Clark County School District, which is the 5th largest school district in our nation. While in the Clark County School District, I served as the Director of Literacy, Technology, and Talent Development, a very long title, within the Curriculum and Professional Development Division. And while I was the director, I was able to provide both professional development and coaching and mentoring to teachers and administrators at the district and the school level. I oversaw the development of the initial coaching initiative within our schools, as well as the digital coach initiative within our schools. And then one exciting aspect was I oversaw the web-based application of our curriculum delivery system that was within the Clark County School District, where it was developed, and then we rolled that out to 8 counties within the state of Nevada. Then I retired, and I served as an adjunct professor for Sierra Nevada College. And then I am currently working back in the Clark County School District as an interim site-based administrator supporting a new teacher. So being a mentor and a coach to that teacher. So that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jody. We appreciate that. So if I may, if you'll indulge me for a moment, I will share my screen. It looks like I have screen sharing capabilities. So I'll pivot now to our Prezi. And then I'll minimize my controls and just want to get confirmation from the folks that everybody can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to go through this very quickly, so forgive my rapid nature of just speaking freely and fast. You've heard from both of us, so again, James and Jody will be your primary consultants. One thing I'd like to add is that we have roughly 30 faculty members, retired superintendents, retired educators that represent us in the search capacity. Although Jody and I will serve as your primary principal consultants, at any time during the executive search, we'll be able to work with our colleagues from the East Coast to the West Coast. So if it's the will of the board, the will of the community and the district for us to cast a very wide net, we'll be able to do that and utilize our tremendous network across the US. So our mission is very simple. So there's 3 things I like to highlight here and underscore. One, our practice is rooted in equity, inclusivity, and transparency. Those 3 words are very important because throughout the duration of the executive search for your next superintendent, the Board of Trustees, the community, the students, and all of your constituents will be a part of the process as we start to develop the leadership profile, begin the recruitment, the vetting, and the screening of the candidates that you will consider. And we'll get into a little bit more about those details. And the success of the superintendent can be measured, as we know, in many different ways. The satisfaction of the school board, the community, and ultimately the students that he or she serves. So we as a firm are unique in the fact that we do not work with a stable of candidates. We do not recycle candidates from one district to the next. In fact, we will never recruit your superintendent away if you choose to retain us to support you in this work to go to another district. All of the superintendent searches that we've conducted over the past 6 years have been new superintendents that we've recruited and essentially, in what I would affectionately say, poached from another district. But we would never recycle your superintendent and place him or her in another system. So that's a unique difference to us. A little bit about some of our clients, just a quick screenshot of some of the work that we've done. You'll notice here where my cursor is, the Tacoma Public Schools actually retained us to do an audit of their operational workflow. So there's 3 primary functions that our consultancy engages in. One, obviously, the executive search work. Executive searches for principals, chief academic officers, athletic directors, general counsel, and of course, superintendents. So anything that's executive level, we engage in. But as a consultancy and with our brain trust of faculty such as Jody and the others across the country, we can also do other things like leadership development, strategic planning, and audit work. And so Tacoma Public Schools actually retained us to provide some audit services. Not listed on here is Gresham Barlow School District in Oregon. They recently retained us to hire a joint charter management principal for one of their unique innovative campuses. All right, let me catch my breath for a moment. Some differentiating factors that I haven't discussed. One, we utilize an interview portal. So if you see that second bullet on the right-hand side, one of the things that we've done have to better equip us with getting to know the candidates that come through the system that we may not know professionally or personally is to better screen them and vet them prior to any in-person interview. So it's not to replace an in-person interview or even a virtual interview such as this one. It's an opportunity for you as a board, for us as a search firm, and even your community members if it is the opportunity for them to review candidates. Now that's entirely up to you, given the access to the candidate details. So earlier I mentioned transparency and inclusivity. As a board, you will have access to all of the candidate information, their letters of interest, their resumes, any artifact that they submit for consideration, including their on-demand interview. And then last but not least, I'll say that we offer a guarantee of success. If should your superintendent that is hired through our recruitment services serves less than 2 years, we will conduct the search at no cost in its entirety, free of charge. Now, knock on wood, we have never had to do that. All of the superintendents that we have recruited and supported the placement of are still in their respective roles today. So this is a quick snapshot of what the on-demand portal looks like. So as a board and as a firm, we will require that each eligible candidate who meets the minimum requirements of the job profile and the job description complete this short interview exercise. Now they'll do this independently on their own time. And you can see over here to the left-hand side, there's 3 questions that we can see in that screenshot. If you don't mind, I'd like to show you just a quick vignette of what that looks like, so you get a sense of how it actually works. So I'm gonna play just a few, maybe 10, 15 seconds of a recent video. So Sharice Nix Lightfoot was a candidate for the communications and PR role that we just concluded in Garland ISD, which serves about 50,000 students. They're in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So it locked me out. Sorry. So this is essentially the same thing that we would do, of course, using relevant questions and content for the superintendent position.
One can gain perspective about the current state of a district by looking at the past few years. So it's important for me to research and analyze GISD trend data for the past 5 years. I looked at news reports, social media platforms, the district strategic plan, and the website to see what the current state of the district was. I feel that a communication plan should always directly relate to the needs.
Okay, so I'll pause it there just in the spirit of time, but essentially you will have an opportunity to get to know each of the candidates that apply for Peninsula School District along with us. And then we can determine from some of the videos, the letters of interest, the resumes, any artifact that they submit to us by vetting and sourcing all the candidates through that one tool and some of the other tools.
James, that's prior to selecting who we're going to be bringing in for interviews.
Absolutely. So great question. It's a preliminary screening tool that we use because if it's the will of the board for us to cast a very wide net and recruit from near and far, many candidates or some candidates even that apply, we may not know from Adam. So it's important for us to get to know them a little bit better. It's too difficult nowadays just to receive a letter of interest and a resume to really get to know a candidate without understanding their demeanor, their professional style, their speaking ability, how much research they did about the district, because we'll ask questions that pertain to the district and we want to know that they did their homework. You know, for us, Jody and I have done our homework. We know about the recent levy. Congratulations. You're a tremendous bond. I've watched all of the board meeting leading up to now. So we want to see that the candidates demonstrate that same level of effort. And we want you to feel confident before you invite them for an in-person interview that they know what they're talking about. And it's also an assurance for us as well, because it's our reputation at stake and we have a measure of success that we hold near and dear to the work that we do. So the great question, thank you. So a little bit about the recruitment. Of course, we're going to recruit in the traditional pre-K-12 market nationwide. Again, if national is at the pleasure of the board, we can do that. I mentioned non-traditional leaders here because there are some instances where it might be appropriate that you might have somebody with a CFO background, an attorney. Those aren't uncommon superintendent hires. It's less common these days, but we have seen it happen in the past. So we work in all sectors, which is why I like to show this slide. I mentioned casting a wide net. That's the verbiage we use just to demonstrate that we're a national outlet. Some of the groups you're familiar with up here in the top left, we work closely with all of these major associations. The American Association of School Administrators. ALAS is the Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents. I'm actually speaking at their national summit, which is being held virtually this weekend. We're the only search firm that has been invited to speak during their virtual summit, which is held annually once a year. We also work with the Council of Great City Schools, the Council of Urban Boards of Education. The list goes on and on. I know our industry is flooded with acronyms, but just want to give you a sense of the depth and the breadth of the groups that we'll work with to help recruit qualified talent. Now, this timeline is really just predetermined based on what I've read and the scope of work and the bid proposal. So we understand it's the board's will and the objective to hire somebody by April. So by no means is this set in stone. This is just a suggestive timeline, how we would operate in the major milestones that we would accomplish to reach that goal. And then last but not least, just a quick snapshot of a testimonial. This district is comparable in size to Peninsula School District. They're located in my home state in Texas, Central Texas, just south of Austin, our capital city. But they were a tremendous partner. Their superintendent is still, he's I think approaching his 6th year. So they've had tremendous success under his leadership in the team of 8 there. And then last but not least, I'll close with this before we entertain any questions. I wanted to thank you socially and give you an acknowledgement for the opportunity to be here with you this evening. So to give you a sense of our social media presence, this is my personal LinkedIn profile. I just took a quick moment to say thank you on behalf of the firm for inviting us to interview. You can see here that we've had in a short period of time, almost 1,400 views and 38 likes and 1 comment. And in fact, the 1 comment, you can see she's a school board trustee in a district here in Central Texas as well. So that concludes our very quick presentation. So hopefully I didn't overstay my welcome with our 10-minute time frame, but we welcome any questions and would love to hear your thoughts and get your feedback.
Excellent, James. Thank you. And quick, but you got it, a lot of the points that we were looking for. So I will open it up for questions right now. And we'll just start there. Anybody? I'll start. So you mentioned watching our board meetings and kind of doing some and looking into our district, which we really appreciate. What do you do to go about learning about our community? And we have two different peninsulas. We have Gig Harbor and Key Peninsula. And how do you go about learning our community?
Great question. So you have 120 miles of excellence, square miles of excellence. So our initial kickoff meeting will consist of meeting with each of the board members independently, one-on-one, or I guess technically one-on-two with myself and with Jody. One of the questions we'll ask you is, who in the community should we visit with? Aside from staff and students, executive cabinet, who are the important stakeholder groups that you would prefer we meet with? And we'll spend the first 2 to 3 weeks engaging boots on the ground, working with as many people as possible. And their voices are very important for that reason, to develop the leadership profile and the job profile that we'll use to, one, screen the candidates, but also for the advertisements that we'll post nationwide. So it's important to hear from everyone so that we can provide you with a summary, a synopsis of what we've gathered and what we've heard from your stakeholders, both internally and externally. But we will look to you for those recommendations, and then we'll work with perhaps your board secretary or Superintendent Jarvis to just get the basic contact information. We want to make this as painless and pain-free as possible and take the burden of the hard work off of their shoulders, but really make ourselves available and present in the community. Now, with COVID, I don't want to assume that folks will feel safe and comfortable meeting in person. So we have the ability to meet virtually or telephonically. We just concluded 4 superintendent searches, and in fact, one of them, we had more than 200 virtual meetings consisting of more than 2,600 people that we met with over the span of 2 months. So we can easily pull that off. It's very, I wouldn't say taxing isn't the right word, but it's going to take some work in terms of the deliberation of scheduling and the calendar kind of workflow for everybody. But those are things that we're able to do with our technology and our efficiency.
You mentioned providing feedback to the board. When giving feedback, do you typically give it in a, like, here's a summary of what we heard, or do you give it a, here's a summary and here's all the detail below that?
Yeah, great question. So it is all encompassing. So it's not just a summary. We call it an executive summary report. The report generally will range from 8 to 12 pages. And then it'll have certain visual aids as well, because we'll also have simultaneously be running online surveys. We subscribe to the premium version of SurveyMonkey. So for example, if you have a number of languages that you feel are appropriate for us to create customized surveys in different languages, we can certainly do that as well. We can aggregate the data and put that into a legible and meaningful report, inclusive in the same report, to give you a sense of what people are saying. The online surveys work well because it protects the anonymity for those who wish to share but want their comments to remain private. So that's all encompassing. So the synopsis, that summary report that I just referenced, that will be a preface to the creation of the leadership profile of the next superintendent, the job profile, which is what we consider the job description. So you'll have one to complement the other.
I've got others, but other questions from anybody else?
I have
No,
one.
I think.
Go ahead, Natalie.
Okay, I'm just looking through your prospectus. You mentioned that you use a unique technology. I think you called it Modern Hire. Is that the portal that you were talking about, or is there something additional that sets you?
No, that's correct. So Modern Hire is a third-party platform. It's a subscription that we pay for. So we incur the cost of that, but that's the preliminary screening tool for us to pre-vet and pre-interview prior to any in-person interviews you choose to have, or any virtual interviews. So it's just a redundant layer of vetting, and it gives us a sense of who the candidates are. And I'll give you a recent example. So we recently concluded the Austin Independent School District search. They serve roughly 82,000 students. We had 64 applicants representing 23 states. So the consultants, the executive search firm, spent independent time reviewing each of those 64 videos. And then what we'll do is we'll make a recommendation based on our experience and the practitioners in the room who are the top 10 theoretically. So group A will be the top 10. Group B will be the delta of whoever else applied. So my point earlier is we will never withhold information from you as a board when we present the candidate portfolios. You'll have group A from our recommendation, but again, by no means do you have to take our recommendation. We'll provide you with access to all of the candidates. And that's one of the functions of the Modern Hire platform. It just gives us more depth of and insight into who each of the candidates are.
Great, thanks.
I think Chuck, did you have a question?
No, I think he answered most of my questions.
Okay. David, any thoughts?
Yeah, it's sort of, could you go back to your timeline that you brought up?
Sure. Let's see here. Sorry, bear with me 1 second. Okay, can you see the timeline, sir?
Yeah, thank you. One of the questions I would like to know is that October for recruitment, to me, seems like it might be, and I know you already mentioned that might be, this is all movable. As far as being able to identify a national search or
David, you're breaking up.
however you do it, and find out what the values of the score, what am I working or not?
You're on. I don't understand the question. So can you?
Yeah, I think I understood it. You were asking about the legitimacy
You interrupted.
of the timeline.
No, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm wondering is how you would, before you do your recruiting and put your announcement out there, how would you make sure that you got what the board is looking for, what maybe the teachers and the staff, the community, how are you going to get the pulse of what we all want, unless I missed something, before you put the recruitment out, so that the superintendents out there know whether or not they should even apply for the job?
Sure, absolutely. No, great question, a fair question. So the recruitment theoretically never stops because, we posted that we're here with you this evening. We've already started to get inquiries about the potential to serve Peninsula School District. So it's just a very high level statement that I'm making, but you're absolutely right. We won't actually begin the recruitment until we conclude the stakeholder meetings, the staff meetings, the student meetings. We develop the summary report, and you have the opportunity to sign off on the report, provide us with your candid input and feedback, and then also your blessing to publish the job description, the job profile. And so, that, again, it's not a moving target. That's just a suggested target based on what we read in the scope of work of the bid. But we'll customize our timeline to represent the major milestones of the board. So that's our work. We work at the will of the board. So as I stated earlier, our responsibilities are to represent you. So what you feel is best and what you feel is fair, we will defer to you as those milestones being the best practice for Peninsula School District.
James, one of my major concerns with this entire process is just all the COVID limitations and whatnot. It sounds like you have a lot of technology in place, a lot of ways of reaching people via interview online and whatnot, which I think is fantastic. What as a board do we need to be concerned with due to COVID restrictions during our search? Sounds like you've done a couple during this time.
Correct. Yeah, the great question. So I think giving people the opportunity and the flexibility either to meet in person or virtually, and just being understanding and compassionate with people's well wishes. So, we're nimble. So I'll give you an example. We were just retained on Monday by another school district here in Texas to conduct a search, and some of the community members have already disclosed that they prefer to meet virtually or by phone. Others are open to meeting in person. So we will follow the guidelines and the social distancing restrictions that are in place in your local community. And we want to, adhere to the people's safety and well-being. So the one thing I would tell you, and what I've observed, not just here in my home state, but this statement for a national perspective. Many of the superintendents who are eligible for retirement right now are choosing to retire at this time of the year. And I think a large part of that has to do with COVID, the pressure, the stress of the job, just to be frank and blunt about it, because we have many of our colleagues, even that I've worked with for a number of years, who have officially stated that they are planning to retire in the month of January. And I think a lot of that can be attributed to the pandemic and just the stress that comes with COVID. So I think it's a ripe opportunity for candidates to start looking for the opportunity. One, if they're a neophyte superintendent, if they're brand new to the role, to begin applying for the role, or if you're in a smaller district and a smaller community with fewer students, apply for a district the size of Peninsula School District. So I think that opens the door for a much broader set of opportunities, which is a positive. We're starting to see a trend that this is becoming more common at this time than it has been in years past.
Okay. Following all social distancing stuff and whatever, will we meet James and Jody in person, and would we meet potential candidates in person through this course? Should we expect that?
Our preference would be yes. I don't want to speak on behalf of your colleagues on the board, but I think we all do our best work in person. So if you're comfortable meeting candidates in person, I would say you get to know them, in a little bit better relational context than you could virtually. I've seen it done both ways in the past 4 searches that I mentioned during the COVID and during the pandemic. But I would argue that we all, as people, I think we require that connection. This is such an important decision. I wouldn't want to make light of the decision by just offering virtual only. I think that you can make that relational connection better in person than you could virtually. But again, that's up to the board. I mean, we can do and accommodate whatever you feel is best.
Okay. I know our time is done here. Any last comment that you'd like to make, or questions that you have of us?
No, I think you have a very thorough process. I would like to thank the staff who have helped us. I see Tanya's name here and I see Chris. They've been tremendous. So all credit to them for their thorough communication. Appreciate my colleague Jody for joining us. And again, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to at least showcase our services and our skill set and have the opportunity to meet you virtually. And I want to say again, we're honored and we're humbled for the opportunity. And regardless of the outcome for us, I want to wish you well in this very important journey. And if we can be of service to you in the future in any capacity, we welcome the opportunity.
Thank you.
James and Jody, thank you so much. It's nice meeting you and fantastic presentation. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Y'all have a great night. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Excellent. Thank you all very much. And I know that we have David Cash and Valerie Pitts online, I believe. David, hello, and
Yes.
Valerie.
Oh.
My name is Deb Krishnadasan, and I'm introducing David and Valerie from Hazard Young Ada, correct? Did I say that?
Atia.
Atia. I did not say that right. Atia, thank you, Valerie. With us tonight, we have our board members, David Olson, and wave, Natalie Wimberly, Chuck West, Lori Glover, and our student representatives, we have Tyson Brent and Connor Flaherty. And I think Ashley stopped off. We also have our superintendent, Dr. Art Jarvis.
Hi.
is with us. And then also Tanya Beatty, who's our executive assistant, and Chris Hagel, which I'm sure you've been working with over the last couple of weeks. So
Yes.
welcome and thank you for presenting to us tonight.
Well, thank you so much for having us, and hello, everyone. I had just a tiny end of the previous presentation, and you know, it's difficult not being there in person, but here we are, and we'll do the best that we can. It's nice to see all of you tonight.
Thanks, Valerie.
Well, and I'll also extend our welcome, and we'll start the presentation. We know we only have 10 minutes for that, so we want to make sure that we get to your questions as well, because that's important. Hazard Young and Atia is very excited to be here. I will just briefly introduce myself. I'm David Cash. I'm a former school district superintendent for 15 years, and the last several years I've been a professor training aspiring superintendents at the University of Southern California. And don't hold that against me, because I also want to make sure you know my dad graduated from the University of Washington. Dr. Pitts.
Well, hi, I am also a former superintendent in the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area. I now reside in Bend, Oregon, however. And as most of us superintendents do, I failed retirement and continue to consult and also work at the university with graduate students.
So, Dr. Pitts.
Okay, so a little bit about us. We represent a firm that's been in the search business for 30 plus years and done many, many executive searches that have been national. So we are a national firm, and we are even an international firm, and that we do have international candidates that reach out, and we will reach out and do recruitment to them as well. We really enjoy the back office support that we receive from the offices in Illinois. We pride ourselves on communicating with you, making sure that we're responsive to your questions, as well as to providing you updates frequently, and just being in general available to you in any way that we can as this search process moves forward. We have had a short history of very successful virtual interviewing processes, video engagement. And we also have our equity promise, which is that we will reach out to a very broad and diverse candidate pool, and we will assure that we are looking through the equity lens, especially as they relate to your goals in this area. So that's our equity promise.
Yeah, our commitment really is to find the best possible candidate pool for you. Really want to make it clear that we recognize that this is your search, and our job is to support you in finding the best candidates. And we will recruit and provide a slate of candidates for you to interview based upon the criteria that you and your community provide to us. And we'll do everything we can to ensure that we give you the candidate pool that's going to meet the needs of the Peninsula School District.
So you have a little bit more about this process in the written proposal that we've provided you, but let me just give you a quick overview. The engagement part of this process has to do with our engaging with you as a board and your immediate leadership team, your cabinet, and your staff and your teachers, as well as your community. We work with you to determine who to engage and how to engage those groups. We have done surveys, we do focus groups, we do one-on-one interviews, and we collect a lot of information as we engage with your stakeholders to tell us a little bit about what they'd like to see in a superintendent. And of course, we hear about that from you as well. And with that information, we develop our leadership profile, again, in collaboration with all of you. And we move to the recruitment part of this process, which is a pretty in-depth process for us. So that involves us not only, making sure that we are advertising in all of the places that we talk to you about advertising in, but we are also making phone calls. We're engaging with our colleagues. We are making sure that the word is out, and we're actively recruiting and reaching out to candidates that we think are going to be a good match for the Peninsula School District. Sorry, David, did I take one of your slides?
No, that's fine. I think it's just important to recognize that in our process that we're very, very interested in hearing what your community has to say. We spend a lot of time listening. That's probably the most important part of the HYA process, is listening carefully to first the board and then very carefully to the community, because we understand how important the match is between the candidates that we would present to you and the community and the needs of the Peninsula School District. We do have, because we have a national lens through which we are able to look at candidates, also recognize that it's extraordinarily important that we focus on what the local needs are of the Peninsula School District. That really will drive our search, and it will drive all the recruiting that we would do. Once we understand what candidates are going to best meet the needs of the Peninsula School District, we'll be out there recruiting the best fitting candidates that we can find. And that will really allow us the opportunity to screen, interview, and conduct a thorough reference check. Both Dr. Pitts and I are very familiar with the Pacific Northwest. My experience is both personal and professional. I practiced law in the Pacific Northwest, went to law school actually with, and was a law school roommate with somebody that grew up in Gig Harbor, Clifford Peterson. And as I stated earlier, my dad is a Husky. And we've done searches in the Pacific Northwest as well. The next phase of our search is the select phase. And I'd have to say we're extraordinarily thorough in our select phase. We really want to present to you a slate of qualified candidates. In fact, our job and the way we look at it is we want to give you so many candidates that meet the qualifications that you have a difficult time picking who you actually want to meet and interview. We'll use the leadership profile report, which, as Dr. Pitts stated, is this combination of all the data that we get from our focus groups, from our one-on-one interviews, from, if the board chooses to use, and we would recommend that you do, the online survey. And from all that data, we put together a leadership profile report, and that really gives us the opportunity to give to you the best slate of qualified candidates. Now, throughout this entire process, board members will have access to a web-based board portal where you'll be able to see all the applications, the people who are interviewing, all of the information related to their application, not just their application, but their CV, their letters of recommendation, their transcripts, everything. So you won't just be seeing or hearing from the candidates that we feel best meet the needs of the Peninsula School District. You'll have access to the entire slew of applicants so that you can ultimately be making the selection as to who you'd like to see for an interview. We will then conduct a board interview workshop and help prepare the board with questions, rubrics, and based upon what we've heard and what we've learned from the board and the community, you want to look for during the interview process. We'll facilitate the board interviews, and then we'll also facilitate the selection discussion, both from the semifinalist to the finalist prospect. And then, depending upon which direction the board wants to go, we will facilitate a deep third-party background check, which will look at all social media accounts, provide the board with information related to legal, financial records in relationship to either the finalist candidate or the finalist candidates that they would like to interview. Dr. Pitts.
Yes, we're clearly in unprecedented times here. I want to say thank you to all of you as board members and to any educator and the superintendent who is here tonight listening for the incredible work that you've been doing since the beginning of 2020 in dealing with this national crisis. So thank you for doing the hard work and for staying focused on our students and families. So as you've already heard a little bit, we have been conducting virtual interviews, virtual focus groups, virtual community forums for those districts that like to have an opportunity for their finalists to be in front of the community. We will pre-screen candidates before we recommend a slate to you, and we will do those either face-to-face. I have met recently in distanced coffee with folks. It just depends on what the comfort level is and making sure that we can be extremely safe. But we would do it by FaceTime or by video or Skype as well. So we have a lot of different platforms that we can use depending on that. So we can facilitate you and your online interviews with slated candidates by the time we get there. If it's January or February and things are changed, we can allow flexibility for it to be online or in person, just depending on the context of what's happening. We will conduct meetings with as many as are necessary to have involved in those meetings. And we will make sure that we host any kind of presentations and Q&A sessions with the entire community if that is what you choose to do in this process for your finalists.
The last phase is the transition phase, and where we will meet with the appointed superintendent and the board and debrief the process and assist the superintendent with goal setting and a 100-day plan. We have a lot of other services that I won't go into unless they're of interest to the board post superintendent appointment. But our firm and Dr. Pitts and I are familiar and have had a lot of success and experience in coaching, board governance workshops, superintendent evaluation, and strategic planning. We did put together a draft timeline only because we wanted to just make sure that the board understood that we could show to you how you could have your superintendent selected and ready to begin on your timeline. What we would want to do is bring you together in a board study session and develop the timeline and with very specific dates so that we could begin listening to you first and then your community as to what you would like to see in the next superintendent. But here you can see the timeline, how long it would take. I want to make it clear that we've done searches where these timelines have been compressed, and we've done searches where the timeline has been expanded. And I can't say enough really that this is your search, and we're here to facilitate it for you. And the timeline will be the timeline that works best for your community, your school district, and you as board members. Dr. Pitts.
Why do you always give me the cost one, David?
Oh, sorry.
I'm just teasing. We hope that we are being as competitive as we possibly can with our fee structure. This amount that you see before you on this slide here is inclusive of any travel that we would do, the third party background vetting, and the verification of records and things like that. The additional costs would come potentially in the type of advertising package you choose. And advertising, depending on what publication, what organization you're advertising with, can range anywhere from $200 for the month to $1,000 for the month. But we offer various packages for you, and we talk with you about what makes sense in terms of what your needs are in Peninsula School District. And the last slide, I'll go ahead and do too. We have a guarantee. We will continue until you are completely satisfied with the selection that you've made for superintendent. If for any reason during the first year, the superintendent that you've selected via our process leaves, we will conduct another search for you, free of charge. And we also agree not to, after we place a candidate in a school district, we will not reach out to that candidate for at least 3 years or try to recruit them from for another position.
So in conclusion, here's kind of the summary of our differences for Hazard, Young, and Attia. We do have a national reach. In fact, we post on our website, we have currently over 6,000 searches. So whether you select HYA or not, there's a great likelihood that the search or your next superintendent will still be on the HYA website. But our focus really is on the local school district. Again, we will do everything that you ask us to do because we know that this is inherently a local process. We believe very strongly in inclusivity. We'll try to find and we will bring to you a very diverse candidate pool and transparency. We will provide regular weekly updates to you on what we are doing and how we are doing. You will have access to a web-based portal where you'll be able to look at applications as they arrive and review them. We promise to have broad and deep community engagement. And we have had, even prior to COVID-19, extensive experience and expertise conducting video interviews, focus groups, forums, and meetings. We'll be as aggressive as you ask us to be in recruiting candidates to come. Your school district, currently I actually have 2 students at USC that are principals in school districts that are near your district. And they have both commented to me what a fantastic school district Peninsula is. We will do a thorough and responsible vetting for all the candidates that we would present to you, support you through the interview process. And again, we'll be looking at everything through an equity lens. So that concludes our presentation, and we'd love to be able to answer any questions that you may have.
David and Valerie, thank you very much. I know it's a lot of information that you're putting in there. Great overview. I'll open it up to questions.
I have a question.
Lori.
Thank you so much. That was very thorough. In fact, you answered almost all of my questions. But having not been through this process myself before as a board member, how many candidates would you normally bring the board initially? Assuming someone applies.
With your school district, I don't think there's going to be any question about getting a good, strong candidate pool.
Again, we would work with you to talk about the number of semifinalists that we put in front of you for the semifinalist interviews and the number of finalists you would like to see. It's typically 12 to 14 semifinalists. Is that could be less, could be a little more. And then we work with you to, down to 4 or 2 finalists. And we could have up to 30 or 40 applicants or more.
Thank you.
Other questions? Natalie?
Yeah, I do actually. I really appreciate that you are working also to support the superintendents once they're placed. And you had a comment that you assist superintendents with goal setting and their first 100-day plan. Is that something that we would work on together as a board so you know the direction we want to go, or how does that work?
Absolutely. Again, this is your search, and the most important employee that you hire is obviously the superintendent. And so getting off to a great start and working together as a leadership team and a governance team is key and critical for both the success of the new superintendent and the continued success of the school district. So that would be a collaborative effort with the school board, identifying the specific goals, and then the school board and the new superintendent working together with HYA to develop the entry plan. It's typically called a 100-day plan, but these days I've seen some as long as 180 or 6-month plans.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
David, in your proposal, it talks in the engagement phase, it talks about 4 consultant days for interviews of our stakeholders and whatnot. We've got lot of stakeholders, a lot of really involved stakeholders. I'm assuming when you say 4 days, that could be multiple groups in a day, correct? So it's not like you're only gonna have, we only have in the plan 4 groups that you'll be interviewing. It's more than 4 groups.
Yeah, no, Dr. Pitts and I would set up shop either if it was in person in the district office or if it's done virtually. And we would talk to as many people as we could get to talk to us and who you wanted us to talk to.
Okay.
And we would talk to individuals for probably around 30 to 45 minutes, focus groups anywhere from 45 to 90 minutes. The community forums typically are at night so that we can get working parents to attend, and those last as long as they need to last. Because again, really our goal is we need to hear as much as we can and learn about your school district as to what the community would like to see in the next superintendent.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be your frame of reference when you're looking at candidates.
Okay. So
And
do you
we'll
feel
work very
or
closely with you to talk about who you feel need to be in those focus groups or their one-to-one conversations that we have. And we may make some suggestions, but we know that you have key stakeholders that you want to make sure have an opportunity to speak with us.
So a district our size, of what you know of it so far, you think that would be a sufficient amount of days to really get in and get to know our community and stakeholders and kind of wishes?
If it's not enough, we'll be there longer.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is, our goal is to get the best candidates in your hands, and we can't do that unless we know what your community needs.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about how important it is for you as a firm, and then also if we look at national candidates, understanding Washington State education and all of the laws and regulations within Washington State. What are our concerns as a board with that?
As far as national candidates?
Even within, as a firm, you understanding Washington State educational parameters and laws, and then also as we look at candidates.
Well, my take on that, and I would love to hear from Dr. Pitts as well, is that leadership is leadership. And what we found is that districts that are interested in looking at candidates outside of their local area are typically looking for the leaders. Public school districts, while they are different as far as laws and regulations, how boards work, how closed session or executive sessions work, how open sessions work, labor laws, those are all things that great leaders can learn. And it's been our experience that if boards are interested in looking outside of the state or the local or regional area and are looking at a national search, that what they'll find are great leaders that can learn what needs to be learned in order to be effective in their particular state.
And if any of our candidates, many of them will ask a specific question: what do I need to do? What extra classes do I need to take to get the certification in the state of Washington? Then Dave and I will do the background on that and be able to provide that. In many cases, our candidates have certification where, they have reciprocity with the state of Washington. But in some cases, certification can happen over, it doesn't have to happen prior to someone getting a job. It can happen over the course of the 3 years. If there's state classes that candidates have to take in order to get the superintendent certification in Washington, then we'll work. But it's not a barrier. It's not something that stops candidates from wanting to come to a great place like Peninsula in the state of Washington.
Okay, so somebody's not going to get held up and can't start because they're not certified in Washington. Okay, perfect. Good. You answered a lot of my other questions already in the presentation. Other questions? Yeah, Natalie?
I have one, and this is just maybe anecdotal, but in this world now, this COVID year, are you seeing people still applying for jobs and being as willing to to pick up and move across the country, if that's what it means, without having the same travel and.
So I can answer this one right now, and I know Dave can't because he's involved in another search as well. But we started a search last almost a year ago, year ago, December probably, and the search was called off in the middle of March, just at the point at which we had prepared the slate of semifinalists. The district decided to hold because they were very concerned about these issues. And we did have some candidates that said, this is nuts, what's happening right now, who didn't apply, but we still had a very strong candidate pool. That district chose to appoint an interim. We have reopened that search, and we have a very strong candidate pool, actually, stronger than we had back in January and February. So we've talked, and I checked in, and Dave did too, with candidates that had been on the original slate. How are you feeling? What would work best? If you're interested again in the same district, is it going to be better to get out early? Because districts like you are dealing with, when do we get out? Are we going to be behind everybody else? Is it the right time? And it's you're in a good spot right now. It is the right time. And there are candidates who are interested in making moves. It's the right time in their career. They've always wanted to come to Peninsula School District, and they know that opportunities only open up so many times. But they also are thinking a lot about the districts that they are currently in relation to the best transition if they do get selected for another job. How to leave their current districts in good hands.
Right.
So there is a lot of thought there from candidates, which is what you want to see.
Right. Okay, that's good.
You have a great district. I've done a ton of research. Who wouldn't want to be in Patriot country?
Jason.
Come on. The candidate pool, my guess is if you hire HY, if you select us and you say, hey, we're considering maybe a national search, which we would conduct rigorously and aggressively, my guess is that there's going to be a really strong candidate pool from Washington, because this is a great school district and people want to work here. And I agree with Valerie that, the key kind of component is, how do I successfully transition out of my district in the middle of a pandemic? And so, we are doing that, and we're helping people with that. We really want to thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. And just to confirm, David and Valerie, you would be the team lead for the search that would be working directly with us?
Yes.
Good. And I know that I had a chance to talk to a board member up at Central Kitsap, and they had a very successful search with your firm a couple of years ago. So thank you very much for your time tonight. Appreciate meeting you. And
thank you very much. It's very nice to meet you all, and we hope we can talk again soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night. All right. Thank you. Okay, we now are moving on to Northwest Leadership Associates. I see Mark Venn and Wayne Robertson, two familiar faces to us. My name's Deb Krishnadasan. Good to see you both again. Welcome. Tonight we have David Olson with us, who you also know from a past search. You have board members Natalie Wimberly and Chuck West, and board member Lori Glover. Hi, Lori. Also, we have our student reps with us tonight, Tyson Brent and Connor Flaherty. And then also our superintendent, Dr. Art Jarvis, who I'm sure you know. Tanya Beatty is our executive assistant, and Chris Hagel is our technology guru, who I'm sure you've worked with getting ready for tonight. Right. So welcome to Northwest Leadership, and we look forward to hearing your presentation.
Well, good. Well, thanks. First of all, thanks for having us. Wayne and I are very excited about the potential to do your search again. We did your search 5 years ago, and we had a we had almost 30 applicants for your position, and we think there'll be some good interest this time too. In essence of time, we'll try to quicken this and go through this as best we can and give you a chance to answer questions. I'm Mark Finn, and Wayne Robertson on the screen. My screen's right below me. Dr. Robertson is the head of the superintendent program and teaches at Western Washington University. He was the superintendent in Edmonds, Lakewood, and Conway school districts in his career. I'm currently on the ESD 1889 board. I'm the president of the board. I'm also on the Civil Service, president of the Civil Service Commission for Skagit County. And prior to that, I was a superintendent for 9 years in the Cedar Woolley School District. So we're happy to be here. We appreciate this opportunity, and I'm going to let Wayne talk about our organization a little bit.
All right. Well, Northwest Leadership, a couple of you, and plus Art, I guess, know kind of a little bit about the firm, and we're hoping that the other 3 board members and everybody else in the community knows a lot more about it by the end of the year. Dennis Ray is still our CEO and does a great job leading our organization. When we talk about the firm, we're actually a collection of about, varies a little bit from year to year, 10 to 12 associates, mostly former superintendents in the state of Washington, Oregon, or Idaho. A few other people have not been superintendents, but they've held leadership roles in the state. Almost everybody on the firm, as Mark mentioned, he's affiliated with the ESD, and I'm affiliated with Western. We have affiliations with the other universities, various associations. Very recently, a person joined our firm, Sergio Hernandez, and he's has a leadership role in the Washington Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents, and he's done a great job connecting us with diverse candidates and really broadened our field of vision in terms of our recruiting efforts. We are the firm that has WASDA's, your School Directors Association's endorsement. That's on their website, and we have a partnership with them, and we work very closely with them. And obviously, we've worked in school districts where board members are highly involved in WASDA. Our associates kind of run from Idaho to I-5 and from Cedar Woolley, where Mark lives, to both sides of Oregon. And so we're spread out. We have contacts in all of those districts, and we're highly involved in superintendent search business. Been doing searches for 20 years, over 300 searches, many repeat customers, client districts. We're very proud of that. Done searches in your region and Pierce County and in Kitsap County. South Kitsap, North Kitsap, not the most recent Central Kitsap search, but a prior Central Kitsap search. Bremerton, Puyallup, just keep the list goes on. We've also done searches in ESDs and WASA, WIAA, and the other associations. We kind of get the nod when they're replacing executives. So we're experienced, we're extremely well connected. We listen to board members, so we work with the board. We want to be part of the team. We work very effectively with your staff and with your community. Our searches involve a lot of people, a lot of activity. We've recently done the search in Enumclaw, which was done on a remote platform. So we have experience with that. And as you can imagine, we're doing all of our business just like you are. Our meetings with our company are on Zoom, and that's just the way of the world right now. So anyway, Mark's going to talk about the process and the timeline and some of that, and they'll probably come back to me along the way. So thank you very much.
Okay, good. Thanks, Wayne. Wayne and I have been together, we're going on 8 years doing this together, and we think we do a real good job of balancing each other off. We have a little different styles, but we seem to blend it together in the boards that we work with, and in the past, we've developed some strong relationships. When I talk about the process, if you look at page 2 of our proposal, what Dr. Ray put in there was a kind of addendum that says that we make adjustments based on what the needs are. And we realize the needs right now are that we have to do searches virtually. We have to do them online. And by doing them online, we can connect with a lot of people and be transparent like we always are and get the community involved, but it has to be online. When we did the Enumclaw search, we felt very good about that. There was a lot of involvement in their community, a lot of input from their community, a lot of board involvement, and right up until the last part of the process, and you can see there's 4 phases to our process. The last part of the process, the board wanted to meet with the final 3 candidates face to face. And we would recommend that you try to do that. I know you had a little, I read in the TNT today, you had a little uptick in your district and you've had to delay some anticipated back to school pieces. But we figured by the time we get to February and March, which we will with this search, we hopefully can get to a point where you could at least meet with the finalists face to face. Everything else will be done virtually, from the focus group work. We do an online survey that will provide you information. The focus groups will be up to the board as to who you want us to meet with. We will do the focus group report to you virtually. We'll do the mid-search report to you virtually. We'll present the candidates to you in executive session in virtually. You'll choose the 5 or 6 semifinalists virtually. You'll interview them virtually, either in one day or maybe over a couple days, but that'll be open to the public too when we do our semifinalists. And that's the first time that the candidates, that's when their names become public. We receive all the applications, we aggressively screen and aggressively recruit, but we do that in a way to get you a good pool to choose from. Now, one of the things that we do is we want to emphasize that our searches aren't just in Washington State. If you look back to when Deborah or David, when we did your last search, about 1/3 of your candidates came from out of state. We would expect the same thing now. There's no such thing as just a regional search anymore. Our search, when we get the brochure done and work with you, it'll go out to 3,000 different people, and usually administrators, but it'll be all across the country. So any search we do will be a national search. It's not going to be a local search. We can advertise on the American Association of School Administrators website. We'll certainly put it on ours. We'll put it on the WASA website, the WASDA website, and AWSP if you choose to do that. So I want to emphasize all 4 of those phases are really important. But the important thing now is to realize that we're going to do at least up until the final 3 all virtually. And we've done it before. We have that experience. I'd suggest you talk to Enumclaw if you want and ask about how that went. They were a little worried. It was late in the year when their superintendent left to go to WASA. And they had a great pool, good process. They felt very good about a lot of community involvement. So we're about transparency. We're about being open. We're about getting a lot of people involved, and hopefully you are too. So Wayne, you want to talk about the other part of our proposal?
Well, we've got, I think, probably one piece that probably with the interest of time I want to hit is as we reach out to the candidates, we're very aggressive with our recruiting. We identify candidates from surrounding districts and throughout the state and across the country. And we don't just wait for them to apply. We go after them. We work with the board and the community and the staff to develop a document that's a brochure. And that brochure outlines the challenges and opportunities in the district. It talks about the community, talks about the district, talks about the strengths of the district. It's kind of a marketing piece, and it lays out the instructions for the applicants to complete their application and submit their materials to the district. That comes in electronically to us. We vet the candidates, and we share all that information with the board when we present the candidates to the board in executive session. We don't tell the board who to interview, who to hire, any of that. We recommend as the board wants us to, but we share all the information that we have. We think that the fact that we're so well connected with surrounding districts and throughout the region, that our vetting is extremely reliable and extremely thorough. It's a very important part. You can have great confidence in the information you receive about the candidates. We also think that this is a prime job, and that there's going to be a lot of interest in it, and you're going to have several highly qualified candidates that meet your criteria, and we hope you have a tough time picking the 6 and then the 3 and absolutely the top person for the job. We've really worked hard. Many of the districts have an equity initiative in place, and that seems to be a high priority with boards and with communities right now. And so we've worked hard to identify those candidates and to reach out to them and make sure that they know that their application is welcome in the Peninsula School District, and that and we want to spend some time with them, getting to know them. We're probably pushing our 10 minutes. If you want to run us into.
You can continue.
Okay. Mark talked a little bit about the staff and community involvement. We have you identify the staff members and the community groups. Last time we had some very interesting groups participate in the process, and I think you remember that, a couple of you do. And we go out of our way to make sure that they're connected to it. We want your staff to be connected to the process. We want students to be involved in the process. I think it's great that you have student representatives on your board. We remember that from last time, and we hope to spend some time with your students at secondary schools and get all your schools connected to the process. As Mark said, that have to be virtually, but they're used to that too. And a few more Zoom meetings, I guess they're probably going to be up for the occasion. We're involved in helping you with the contract negotiations. We like to get from you what the terms of the contract are going to be, so we can share that midway with some of the applicants, the semifinalists and the finalists. And then when we get down to the end of the line, we've got the contract already negotiated, so there's no surprises, and the candidate that you want is going to be all ready to go. And we take care of that if you want us to. We work with your staff and possibly your attorney to get that the way you want it to be. And we also contract out for a third-party background check with the finalists. So when you get down to the last 3, we have a firm out of Spokane that we work with. They'll run a criminal background check on that. That's a little different than the one that public agencies do for all employees. They'll also do a financial background check on the people, and they'll check the candidates' resumes to make sure that if they say they have a PhD from some university, that they do, and that there is that university and it's accredited, and that their credentials are what they say they are. Mark talked about our search being guaranteed, and we don't want to have to call upon that guarantee, but it's there if it should be needed. Probably with that, we might be ready for questions. Mark, anything that we're missing?
Just that we will come in and do a superintendent board workshop free of charge for the board afterwards to, if needed, and probably do that, all this virtually. I mean, we're talking virtual here, unless things change from where they are right now and where hopefully they will change. We're very knowledgeable of your district. We were here 5 years ago. We spent a lot of time in the Italian restaurant down below the district office down there. We spent 4 nights down there, and we came away 10 pounds heavier. So, but we do know the Purdy area, the Gig Harbor area. You live in a very, very good area where people are attracted to go to. Your schools, Peninsula, Gig Harbor High School, all your schools have very good reputations. And thanks to the work of Art and the work he's done, this district is in a much better position than it was 5 years ago. You passed a bond, you got things on the table now that are moving forward, and we sense there's just a real positive feel in the district. So thanks to Art for all of his work, and the board too for their work. That's why we're excited about doing your search. So that's about it.
Well, Mark and Wayne, thank you very much. I'm going to open up for questions. Does anyone
Can I go first?
Yes, you can, David. Go.
Thank you. First up, apologize, I don't have my video. I'm having a really bad internet connection and it keeps cutting out, and they couldn't hear me before because my video. Thanks for coming back again. I know what I would like to touch on is I appreciate your concern for safety and that you want to do everything virtually. I appreciate that. I know before you came and you did all your interviews and meetings and workshops in person, but as we hopefully see the COVID curve go down again, would you just quickly pivot and start doing your interviews and your meetings with everyone in person? And then could you just touch a little bit on the success you're having with your virtual interviewing? Thank you.
Sure. You want to take that, Mark? You want me to?
Well, I can. I think that, David, your question is a good one. Yeah, we're very flexible. If we get to a point with the COVID piece where we can start meeting in groups. Now, I don't know the size of groups, but if we can start meeting in groups, we'd much rather do it that way. When we did the interclass search, we had a lot of involvement, but not as much as we would have had we done it person to person, face to face. That's just a reality that we have in this situation. We would hope that the school district would do a lot of advertising with our focus groups to get as many people on as possible. But let's be honest, it's hard for people to really contribute when you're on a format like this as much as they would be if they're just meeting with Wayne or myself face to face. But certainly our goal would be to hopefully get into that personal piece if we could. And then of course, we provide a report and we provide that feedback for you that helps you put together the brochure and get that advertising out.
Between the sessions that we might do remotely, very likely do remotely, and the online survey that we do, you'll get a lot of feedback. And if we're able to augment that with some face-to-face sessions, that'd be a strong, powerful package, and that's the way we'd like to go. We would follow your lead, and I know you're working with the health district and your community to do everything safely and do it the way you're supposed to be doing it. But we're open to participating in any format that we can that's allowed and that you want us to do. We'll be fine with pivoting and spending time in the district. That'd be great. We hope it goes that way, actually.
Yeah, we do.
Thanks, David. Chuck?
You mentioned the guarantee. So if the candidate leaves us, that's actually why you're here, because that happened. And so we expect you to do this for free.
Okay, sure.
So how long is your guarantee good for? I guess that's my question to you.
The guarantee is if the candidate does not finish 2 years. We were watching Rob's calendar pretty closely, and we do know that he submitted his resignation before 2 years, but we believe that he finished the 2 years. I mean, that's our understanding anyway. Anything short of that, the guarantee would kick in.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, Chuck, if we don't find somebody suitable for you, saying Art's going to leave, we would help find an interim and then come back and do the search again for free.
Okay.
Mark or Wayne, can you talk about, because you guys do a lot of searches for Washington districts. Can you talk a little bit about, like, you've got candidate A, he may be applying at this district and this district. How do you guys manage that?
We have that happen sometimes. We try to balance it. We want to make sure that everybody knows what everybody's doing, who's applied where. We try to work the timelines carefully. Usually it works out. Districts they might be the same size or they might be in the same region, but they'll have different demographics or they'll have different criteria that they're looking for. Maybe one district really needs to pass a bond issue and maybe another district is not quite in the same place and they've got some other issue, some program that they're interested in. So it usually works out. Sometimes we did Anacortes and Mount Vernon, neighboring districts, similar size, and they wound up with completely different finalists because the districts were different. So we watch it. Basically, what we don't want is any surprises. If a candidate is going to be a finalist in 2 districts, we want to make sure that both of those school boards know what's going on, and we try to work the timelines carefully and make it all work. If it's our searches, if it's Peninsula and another search firm search, we try to get you out in front of it.
Yeah.
Because we're all worried about the same things, and we want you to have the strongest applicant pool and get the person you want, and so we pay close attention to that.
Yeah. I appreciate that you guys definitely know our community and the dynamics in our community, and not a question, just more of a statement that I've noticed over the last couple of years is our community is changing. And I think you need to relearn a little bit more about some of our stakeholders, because I think there's some new issues on the table that we didn't think about 5 years ago.
Sure.
And you approach some of them in your presentation, which I appreciate. And but I do, coming on board, I would want you to really keep your awareness open that our district, and we've changed a bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we would want to get to know the new board members for sure.
Yeah.
And work with you and David, Deborah. So no, we wouldn't. We don't think we know what the community was, and we know quite a bit about it. But we've got to get up to speed with all of you. And it's as challenging as it is to develop relationships in this platform. We have to do that. We have to make an effort to do that and put the team together to move your search forward. That's what we'd want to do.
Yeah.
What are some of the red flags? Sorry, Mark, did you have something else?
No, I just was going to reiterate that we recognize you have had some growth, and we'd like to get to know the community, different groups in the community again. That was one of the most enjoyable parts about our search before, is we got to meet so many different diverse groups of people, and I'm assuming that'll happen again.
Yeah, we have some pretty cool people in this town.
Yeah.
What are some red flags, or maybe not red flags, but things that we need to be aware of as a board in this whole new world of COVID in our search? Because it's definitely a different type of a search than we've seen in the past, or any kind of recruiting process that probably any of us have been involved with.
Well, I don't know if they're red flags, I wouldn't call them, but I think I think boards in this environment, I think we can actually do a better job of connecting in a lot of ways with boards, because it's so easy to do this. I think our job is to make your job easier. So we want to make your job easier. You should not have to go out. We don't want you to go out and recruit candidates. We want you to let us do that. We will go out and get the candidates and get the pool. Once we get the pool and you go decide on your semifinalists, your preliminary, then we ask you maybe to call some school boards and do stuff like that. But your job is the upfront job, and we can do that through this. And we feel that you need to be ready for that. We need to get together and do focus groups and give you that information, get that brochure out, get it nationwide. And then at the end, when we bring the finalists to you, that's when your work begins again. And really, I think there's only 3 executive sessions, or maybe 4. The rest is open and transparent. So be ready for this sort of format in an open and transparent environment.
I think one thing, I do my teaching through Western, we're using Zoom or sometimes Teams, but anyway, same platform. And I think one of the things that we have to be aware of is the Zoom fatigue that your staff and some of your community members, they're also working from home, and they have kids going to school remotely. So that I think we have to be very efficient and very intelligent and intentional with our presentations and with our conversations, recognizing that people are really working very hard, and in an environment that's frustrating for some of them. And so we have to kind of be on our A game as we interact with your staff, and with your community, and with the board members, of course, and even with the candidates, that that this is it's a different ballgame, and we have to gear up for it. We have to do our best work.
And speaking of Zoom fatigue, you guys have, I read an article the other day, anything longer than 2 hours, people pretty much check out. So when did you start? At 5? 5 o'clock? Deborah, I can't hear you.
We started at 5, yes, but we've had some 4-hour board meetings lately, so we're good, man. We got lots of time here.
Well,
Any closing comments or thoughts that you'd like to share with us, Mark or Wayne?
yeah, Wayne has a couple things for you. Yeah.
Just some closing. Yeah, we want to just kind of run through, kind of repeat some of this stuff, but I'll do it pretty quickly. You get 2 consultants. It's for the price of 1, but you get 2 consultants. So one of us is always available. And I think you found out last time that we're pretty responsive. Most of the time, be like this, we'd both be on board. But if one of us can't, the other one's there, and we're kind of interchangeable parts. We listen, we share all the information that we have. We want a trusting relationship. We want it to be a team. We think we're good facilitators. We don't want to lead the search. We want to facilitate the search. We want you folks to be the decision makers, and we want to showcase you and your work to your community. Our vetting is extensive of the candidates, and I mentioned the third-party background check. We support the compensation negotiations and that part of it. We want to maximize your staff and your community engagement in the search. We can reach nationwide. We've placed candidates from all over the country, and doesn't matter where your post office box or your home address is, they're all intergalactic searches anymore. Strong network in the state of Washington, you know that. We're affiliated with all the ESTs and higher education universities, and that's a strength. We really place an emphasis on diversity and equity. We've been successful recently placing candidates of color. Women leaders are emerging as a strong force in educational leadership, and we want to be connected to that movement. We're the most experienced search firm in the state, and we do have a guarantee. And we thank you for your time. Good to see you.
And we do know through this process that you as a board will become a better school board, because you have to collaborate. You have to be able to build consensus, and to do that, you kind of got to give and take, and that's where Wayne and I can really help out. So thank you very much for having us tonight. We appreciate the opportunity to possibly do your search, and look forward to hearing back from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was great to see both of you again. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Check out. Bye.
Bye. Not bye to the board. Board, stay here. Awesome. All right. Well, we just interviewed 3 firms, and I'll start off by just saying I just think all 3 firms are fantastic. I would be comfortable with working with any of them. I think they all bring different strengths. So I think any firm we choose tonight will serve our community well and serve our search well. So and that's my opinion. So with that, I don't know how you guys want to go about this. I know that we had some thoughts about what we were looking for specifically in a firm. And I don't know if you could tell me if you have a top firm, or if you want to talk about each firm and then decide from there. David.
I just want to make a statement, and then I'll let the other school board members go first. I know some of them haven't been through this process before, so I'd like to hear their thoughts. And before I weigh in, I just want to make a comment that Rob Manahan did leave our school district, but I would argue with anyone that he didn't leave on his own accord. I would say that he was driven out of the school district. And so I would in no way hold that account against the Northwest firm for that. I think he'd still be here if it wasn't for some extenuating circumstances that I won't go into during this board meeting.
That's awesome. All right. Good input there on Northwest. I would like I meant to say this earlier. I think one of the things we should think about is if we are open, if we want a candidate from Washington State, like if that is I think we should really look at the local firm because they probably know every candidate here. But if we're open to a national candidate, I think all three firms would serve us well. Some of the other things that we were looking for is involvement of our stakeholders and the feedback that we're going to get and the input we're going to get back from them. And then the other thing was just really a diverse search and also how they were managing with COVID implications and all of that. So those are some things to think about as you discuss each firm. So with that, I'll open it up.
Well,
Chuck?
I'll just start with one thing. Same thing. I liked all three of them. They all three have great assets. And I was surprised. I'm glad we interviewed all three. The HYA only had a 1-year guarantee, and they would only hold off on recruiting our superintendent for 3 years. That kind of alarmed me a little bit. But I did like everything else about them. I liked, especially on them, I liked their web-based portal so that we could monitor their process as it went along. I don't remember any of the other ones talking about having that tool for us. I did really like JG Consulting. They seem to have their stuff together. They were bring a national search. Yeah, I was a little shocked that Northwest leadership didn't have a PowerPoint type presentation and they were just going to talk to us. But I also like the idea of bringing somebody local and getting Washington State, but I'm kind of mixed on that thought. I like the national. I think we could attract a pretty good national candidate too. Okay. That's my blabbering.
Yep. So Chuck, do you have a ranking of how you would like, if you had to pick a firm, do you have a top firm in mind? You don't have to say it, but do you have one?
I do. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I have yeah.
Okay. Natalie, thoughts?
Yeah, same as the two of you. I thought they all are great at what they do. And I guess we just don't know if our perfect candidate is in our backyard or somewhere across the country. I think some of the JG and Hazard Young mentioned or focused more on their national search. I would just like to see who is attracted to us. I do have concern, even though they said people are still applying, that this is an odd year to pick up and kind of discover a new place. I thought I liked JG's, their modern hire and that technology that they use. I really like having the community be able to access everyone's profiles as well. Hazard Young did something pretty similar. I like that they set up a system to kind of not just place somebody, but help us be successful in the first half a year or so. I wanted to ask you and David about Northwest. They said we had about 10 candidates that came from out of state. Did you ever look at those profiles if they make it to the top before?
We interviewed one. One came to the finalists. He was out of Arizona, I believe. Andrew, is that right, David?
We actually interviewed two. We had a gentleman that flew in from Florida, and we had a gentleman that flew up from Arizona. Okay. So if you're Northwest, Wayne and Mark are in the state of Washington, about an hour drive from here. But our search last time was a national search. And so they certainly are local, very, very in depth with the local market, but they did bring us in national candidates last time. So.
Well, I think it's important to note, and really it's the two of you who would know how successful they were, and is that something that we would want to continue again? And if you think that the community felt engaged and they did a great job with that piece.
David,
Yeah.
go ahead and answer.
Okay, if I start to cut out, let me know and I'll get rid of my video because I'm just having a intermittent internet tonight. So if it starts to cut out, let me know. So I was gonna wait and let everyone go and then I'd go last, but I'll just jump in since you asked. We're paying these search firms a lot of money. And if we want to have a portal that we can have all the applicants put their application into and do an online interview, why don't we just go get a subscription for Modern Hire for $500 and we can post our application there and then we can all just go do online interviews. I personally I don't have the time to go screen 500 interviews on an online portal. And I personally think that's what we're paying our search firm for. So, you know, it's great that they have that, and that's what they would use to bring their pool to us. But I don't believe I think that's getting too deep in the weeds as a board to go in and look at every single person that's applied for group to us and then have one of us say micromanage, which I'm not a fan of, say, oh, I really wish you had brought this candidate from Idaho in, you know, so rely on that because I'm not going to have time to go look at all those interviews. I do think, all three of them are qualified. They all do national searches. I do have some concern that JG and Hazard Young are out of state. So if we do pivot and can start doing local in-person interviews, I want, I think that the fact that they don't live in the state of Washington would be problematic, at least for me. I think that last time the search went very, very smooth. They fully engaged the community. I don't believe Northwest would just rest on what they did 5 years ago. I think they would start from scratch and they'd come back to the community. Hopefully if COVID takes a turn, they'll come back in person. But so I thought I'm not gonna say I disagree with Chuck. I would have liked to have seen a presentation, but I'm not gonna hold that against them because I held the proposal against Hazard Young for having the wrong school district, and we still interviewed them. So I didn't like the fact that they said they would only do up to 10 interviews or up to 20 focus groups. They all have a guarantee, so that doesn't even play in. They all have a guarantee. And I like the fact that they have a couple of them offered a superintendent workshop. I know last time Northwest came in, they sat down with the school board, sat down with the superintendent that we hired, which was Rob, and we worked on a goal and worked on a plan. So I really like that. So I think I'm just going to say, JG made a comment that they would look at non-educators like lawyers and corporate CEOs and things like that. That's something I'm not interested in. I want someone to come in and be an educator that knows how to work with the teachers and principals and the staff and not have some CEO or attorney come in. I just don't think that would work in our market. And what else did I write down? So they all do national searches. So I'm not gonna, they're all qualified for that. They're all superintendents, former school district superintendents, professors. So they all get a check in the box for that. So I don't know if that was a long-winded answer to your question, Natalie, but hopefully it answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Other comments, Natalie?
No, I'd just like to hear what everyone else has to say right now.
Okay. Lori, put you on the hot spot.
I really was impressed, I think Chuck said this already, with JG as well as HYA, just with their presentations and their what they have to offer already that they've been using since, it sounds like, far prior to COVID, with video, screening and all that. So that I really liked. Hazard Young, Atia, I did some research on my own, and they are a highly respected firm. So just because they are a national firm, they are known to persons applying for these kinds of jobs in the Washington State area. And
Lori, what firm are you talking about right now?
About Hazard Young, Tia,
Okay.
HYA. Just that my research indicated that while Northwest Leadership is more commonly known in this area and always does a nice job, that's the feedback I got, that also Hazard Young Atia was highly respected. So I did not ask, in fairness, about JG specifically when I was doing my research. So, yeah, I would agree also with I think Chuck's comment. I was a little surprised. Well, it just was a different format, and we did have the presentation from Northwest Leadership, but it would have been helpful had it been on the screen for us to follow along with them tonight. I do feel a little bit at a disadvantage because Deb and David, you guys both worked with Northwest Leadership, and that speaks volumes. So I mean, you either had a good experience or not, and so you got, I'm inclined to defer to you as far as that. But the one thing that, and this may go contrary to what David said, but it did strike a chord in me. One thing that Hazard Young Atia, that I think it was David Cash said, in response, Deb, I think it was to your question about how concerned are you about a candidate knowing all the laws and the ins and outs of the state of Washington. I wasn't interpreting your question to mean, how well do they need to know the community? Because, I think we all agree that's of paramount importance. But they all have good systems for, I felt like, learning from, with focus groups and such. But I think your question was about a person being familiar with the Washington State superintendent, the different laws. And
you're muted, Lori. Oh.
Sorry. But David Cash from Hazard Young Atia said, leadership is leadership. And that really actually, I feel like that is such a true statement. I think that I've become a bit of a student of leadership more so during COVID, and just really paying attention to how different people are whether it's CEOs of companies or, elected officials or anyone in a position of leadership. And I do think you're seeing the strongest leaders emerge, regardless of what their specific training is in. And which is not to say, David, to your point, that I am suggesting we bring in, the CEO of a hardware store to run the school district. I'm just saying that I think a person can come from another part of the country and quickly learn the Washington State laws if they have demonstrated a great success in another area. And I also think because they just did the search recently somewhat recently with CK, that they do have, and Wenatchee, I believe, also have a history of hiring candidates to Washington State. So.
Okay. Thanks, Lori. David, I know you said you wanted to go last, and I think you've shared some, but so I'll go before you, I guess. I would echo what David said about Northwest Leadership. They're a known entity to us in terms of there was a very positive experience that I've talked to, from teachers to community members to students, actually, that they felt very involved in the process. They felt listened to. It was one of our better processes of when we were engaging our community. And I think it was a good example. Having said that, I think JG and Hazard Young, they also get that. And I think that they would deliver a similar product or a similar process. Northwest Associates may have the little upper hand because they do know our community firsthand to start with. So I think that's advantageous, but I don't think we're in a rush to get this process done. So I think we can allow the other firms to get to know us enough. One of the things I really liked about JG is, I think Lori or someone said it, is definitely they've been doing a lot of using a lot of technology for their searches for a long time, and it's not a forced thing. Like, okay, kind of like looking at remote learning. It's not just doing a Zoom class for teaching our kids now. There's a lot more to it. And I got a sense more that Northwest kind of just applied the Zoom lens on their process, where I feel they may have more, but I didn't get that from them. JG definitely had the use of technology in their process for a long time, and I appreciated that. I also think out of all three firms, JG, the equity and diversity was very natural in their process. It wasn't just like a statement that they have in their portfolio. They talked about how their surveys were in different languages already. And really, I think that is like true to their nature, which I really appreciated as well. I think Hazard Young also had that same, like, we understand the COVID process and what we need to think about and how we manage through that and making that strong. So again, I think all three firms are fantastic. And I'm kind of, I know David needs to talk still too, but I'm kind of at a loss of how to go about this. So if, I know Chuck, you said you were able to rank yours. I probably could rank mine as well. I don't know if if you want to, anyone's brave enough, but David needs to talk first, but we may have lost him, or he's just not on video. David?
No, you didn't. You lose me. I'm just frustrated with my internet speed today. I thought maybe my kid was in watching a movie or something, but he's not home.
Do you have additional thoughts, David?
No, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Thank you. No, I'm not going to disagree that they're all qualified. I think that in the current environment, that over the years, I think everybody looks at whether it's school districts or corporations or whatever, everybody is looking through everything through an I think that just like our school district, who had to ramp up this year with using Zoom meetings, I don't know. I'm not gonna. Certainly wouldn't hold that against one firm or the other, because one had video conferences. Maybe they did that to save money on their budget versus flying around. I don't know, but I think that if you have a local presence, there's not really. We don't really have to worry about a Zoom meeting if we pivot and COVID goes down. They just drive down and be here in an hour, and I just think that's a benefit. I'm just going to reiterate what everybody already said. I think they're all qualified. I know who I prefer, and like Natalie said, or maybe it was Lori said it, I do have a knowledge and a history of working with Northwest Associates. They were very thorough. They did a national search. They were extremely well liked by all the stakeholders in our community that they met with. They brought us excellent candidates from all over the country, and the board, was able to, meet in an executive session. I think there were two of the other two didn't mention that they did that, but meeting in executive session to go over the candidates lets us dig down a lot deeper and do board collaboration a lot more deeply. And I thought that was very beneficial in our last superintendent search. And so that much I really appreciated with Northwest. So I have who my top three are in order. And so I would be ready to make my decision.
Okay. So I did my best to listen to all 4 members and interject mine as well. We all agree all 3 firms would be amazing. We all agree we all 3 would work with each of the firms. I'm going to be bold and put out a name, and you guys can discuss it. I think ultimately what will happen is there will be, if someone is hearing enough of desire for one firm over the other, someone needs to make a motion to nominate one of those firms, and somebody would need to second it, and that's the process it would go through. So again, I'm going to be as bold as listening to all of you. I think JG is one of the top candidates that I'm hearing for many different reasons. So that's where I'm leaning and in hearing from you, but other people can chime in, and if someone's ready, they can make a motion.
I think I would say, completely objectively, not knowing anything about any of them before, I would put JG at the top. However, having had a known entity and knowing that Northwest has served us well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the value is in just picking something different when we know what that known entity is with them. So I
know,
like we all say, I'd be happy with any of them.
Okay, David.
I'm actually gonna reiterate something Natalie said a minute ago. Was that it's nice to say that you're gonna have a national pool, but during a pandemic, people, or even right now, are challenged to go back into school, or even do they even want to go to the grocery store, much less pick up their family and move here from Michigan or wherever they were to find them. I believe that having a local firm, they're in a crisis like we're at, being an hour's drive away from their headquarters would be beneficial. I think that they served us well before. I'm not so much worried that they are the lowest cost. That could be because they're local. But it's not significant enough that I would pick one over the other, because it's sort of, they're fairly close. I think one's like 5,000 more, so maybe that's a little bit higher than I would want. But I'd make a motion, but I'd hate to step on the toes of somebody else. But I can make a motion, and if y'all don't support it, then y'all don't support it. But I'll just make a motion that we select Northwest Associates for our search firm.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion, of David's motion? Okay. That there's not a second, I open discussion. The motion is, what do I say, Tanya? The motion is
fails. The motion fails for lack of a second.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to say. And then I just open it back up to, it can be re-motioned again, but I open it back up to discussion. Lori?
Yeah, I just had sorry about that. I just had some questions. It's not that I disagree with you, David. I'm just not ready for that yet.
Yep, I agree.
David, you said something about JG that makes me wonder now something. Because I really liked their interview portal and the videos and that whole way that we can access the initial candidates. But were you somewhere you were given the impression that, are we going to be left to sort through hundreds of videos just on our own? I got the impression that they narrow that down for us. I think that we have access to that if we want to see, but isn't that what we pay them for, is to narrow that down? That would be important for me to clarify.
That was my understanding, was that it was just there for us to watch, and so we could see how many candidates we had as it progressed on. But yeah, I don't see any of us micromanaging that.
Okay. So that was important. I I did really like them. I agreed with Deb that I felt like the equity and diversity was just very naturally a part of their presentation, and it felt just very comfortable, and also some of the feedback we have from others who have worked with them said the same, that they really enjoyed working with James Guerra. So that was a plus for me, for them. And I don't necessarily share the fear that people would be afraid to relocate for. I think in all my traveling around for work, the Northwest is pretty highly regarded as a great place to live by most. Natalie could speak to this. She's moved around with the military, but it's not like no one's ever heard of it. They may not know the specifics. And it's also not like they're not going to be drawing, local candidates as well. And by local, I mean in-state. So I could just see, based on the presentations tonight and all that we are facing, I think there are some real benefits to going with a firm who has both been doing video for a long time before COVID, and also is willing to meet in person, and is just very comfortable, and with the whole equity and diversity, that's kind of a driving piece of what they're about. So I like those things about JG.
Any firm we pick is going to be great.
Yep.
We just have to pick one. Chuck, do you have additional thoughts now that you've heard a few other comments?
Not really. I mean, I've pretty well made all my little notes, and they're all good. I'd be happy with any one of them. I did rank JG as not my number one choice. And then I kind of had a tie with Northwest Leadership and Hazard Young. They were both pretty close in my books, but I just felt good about JG.
Yeah.
They just seemed like they had the knowledge, the background, and experience.
Okay.
That would get us a good candidate. So.
All right.
Can I make a motion then that we hire JG Consulting for our superintendent?
You move that you select JG. Okay. There's a motion on the floor to select JG as our consultant firm for the search firm for our superintendent. Is there a second? Okay. The motion has failed, and we open it back up to discussion. Barring there's no second for JG, I'm assuming that JG is not someone that they are confident in choosing at this time. I go back to David's comment, and I guess I'm going to support a little bit what Natalie said is, she liked JG, but she liked the known source of Northwest Leadership. I will second that in terms of that statement, because I do know they did a very good job. I do know our community respected the process. I guess, what do they say? Don't fix something that's not broke. They did a good job for us. They did not more than a good job. They did a great job for us. I felt very good about that whole process. Not saying that JG and Hazard won't deliver that same product, but we know that Northwest will. There's some confidence there. So I'll put that out there. If anyone would like to make another motion, we will try that. And if this doesn't work, we're gonna do this another way.
Well, it feels like maybe we just need a little bit more discussion rather than keeping to doing motions. No?
Fine, that's fine.
Okay.
Other thoughts on any of the firms, Lori?
I don't have a particular I don't have a particular question. It just seems that, well, I guess we can do another motion.
Well, I go back to what we really were looking for. We were looking for a firm that was going to really understand our stakeholders and take the time to learn our stakeholders. We wanted someone that was going to really understand how to manage the process during this COVID time, and felt the strongest about that. So those were two of the big criterias that we were looking for. I lost my list for the other three, excuse me.
Yeah, and then we wanted somebody that was going to really bring in the community and take information from the stakeholders.
Yeah.
And all three of them.
See, all three of them would.
Yeah.
And we know Northwest is I guess in lack of a better word, guarantee, because we do know that they worked well with us. We do know that they delivered. David, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I know 5 years ago when we did this, we had a superintendent at the time that was getting ready to retire, and he got a little bit involved in the process. You know, obviously, and Art, you know, can probably weigh in on this, is that I'm sure superintendents from wherever they come from in the country or the state of Washington or whatever, are gonna all be contacting Art and asking Art, how's it working with the board? If they don't, they're foolish, because members of this board contacted the consulting firms and references to find out what their background is. So I would assume if somebody wants to relocate from another state or Eastern Washington, go Cougs or whatever, that they're going to call Art and get a feel for the Peninsula School District. So I know that it's really a board decision, but I just wouldn't mind just a little brief comment from Art. I know, you know, we have Mark Van is the president of the Washington State ESD. So I think that's pretty nice thing to hang your hat on. But what is your opinion, Art, on? I know it's up to us, but what's your thoughts, if it's okay?
I'll unmute. Thanks, David. I think I would offer a couple of comments. One, with a little bit tongue in cheek. I watch it and then I want to compete. I'd like to bring you another firm. I'm not serious, but there's a part of me that would like to say, let me show you what I could do and just have some fun with this one. Moving that aside, I think about 3 times I went back to the list of Northwest associates to look at who they selected and the fact that they were still there. And I went to the place of 4 pages of superintendent searches with 1 retirement basically in those first 3 or 4 pages. And I think bottom line to that one is that I guess my recommendation to you would be, if you thought you had any confidence or lack of confidence in any firm, the one thing you want for sure is you want to end up with somebody that you will serve you well for 5 or 10 years or as long as really as you want. So it comes back to your confidence. I look at those 3 or 4 pages and the fact that everybody is still serving, and I say that's a good thing to me. At the same time, the first one we talked about, JG, I just have never crossed paths with them. I just don't know them at all. And I looked at the list, and apparently they did a consultant thing for Tacoma, but they haven't done anything in Washington State. So that's just more of a question mark. I don't know what their success would be or not be. Hazard Young and Atia has been around a long time, and I think they said 30 some years, but they're very well known and they're very credible. They have a little more of what would be known as their stable of candidates and how they recruit. So that's been known for quite some time. And again, as far as the record in Washington State and the confidence of how many of those people are still there, it's just a little less known than the one that's done so many of the searches. So I'm just trying really hard not to make any recommendation to you as much as to offer a few thoughts in terms of what's important. And as I say, I think they all acknowledged, I think you guys are in a great position to recruit. David, I think you're right. I'll probably get phone calls, and I doubt that you would be surprised to know that I would say to people that this is a great job. I would give you all lots and lots of compliments and high compliments, and I would encourage people to apply here. And frankly, I'd recruit anywhere I could. If there are a bunch of good people out there, if I could talk them into it, I wouldn't even hesitate to help in the recruiting. But ultimately, it is your confidence on what you think would work best for you and the people you'd like to work with. I don't think you'd make a mistake on any of the three. I think you've just got to, you've got some differences in where they've been and how they've gone about their business. How's that for?
Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't. Thank you. Yeah, I definitely didn't want you to say who you think we should pick. I appreciate your comments. So.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Art.
Yep.
Appreciate that. Lori, you have another thought, and then I'm going to open it up again if there's a motion.
Just this feels ridiculous because my thoughts keep being about different firms, but I think just the first two motions were too soon, and I feel better about having more discussion. But I am realizing the more we discuss this that it's important for us to remember that we are talking about the search firm, not the superintendent candidate. And it's easy to get, not confused, but it's easy to get, thinking like, oh, we want someone from here or not here. And this is a search firm from where they're conducting a national search, and candidates who are interested will apply, regardless of who the search firm is.
Great
perspective. That I'm realizing the longer that we talk, something that I thought at the very beginning of this, which is that Deb and David, because you have worked with Northwest leadership and you speak very highly of working with them, that is very valuable. And it's very hard to just discount that. And while these other firms do bring great things, and I was very impressed with their presentations, the longer we talk tonight, the more I'm realizing that having a firm that is local, as David brings up a good point, that could meet on a less, shorter timeline. And that the biggest thing for me is the fact that you two have worked with them with good results and a good working relationship. And I think that is valuable. And I think that it's occurring to me, like I said, the candidates are going to come from, it's a nationwide search no matter who conducts it. So that is not as much of a consideration.
Yeah. More thoughts or discussion?
I'll just piggyback what she said, even though it might be the third time I said it, is if the COVID curve turns, and we all pray that it does, they're an hour drive away and not out of state. So they could literally be here tomorrow if we needed them to be, where the other firms are out of state. And like we heard JG, I believe it was JG, said they hired a consultant to come to the state to work with Tacoma. They didn't come personally, they hired someone to do it. And I don't need an out-of-state firm to hire a consultant in Washington to do our search, when we have someone already in the state of Washington. So
That's interesting you say that, as I spoke with someone that worked with JG, and they had a similar experience where they hired someone local to help with the search. I forgot to ask that tonight. They didn't mention it. The two lead people were going to be James and what's her name? Jody. Yeah. So it's a good point, David. So I am at a point where I would second a motion. And so if
I'll
somebody
quickly
would,
make my motion then. I make another motion for Northwest Associates.
okay, there's a motion that David has put on for Northwest Associates. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay. It has been, I think it came out of Natalie's mouth first. It has been moved by David and seconded by Natalie to select Northwest Associates to perform the superintendent search. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? The motion is carried and Northwest Associates will be doing our superintendent search. Thank you. That's just a preview of what our superintendent discussion will be. But it was good. I'm glad we talked through it. Great discussion, great give and take, like one of them said, and the Northwest Associates did, give and take. And I think that was really good on part of the board. So thank you very much. With that, again, I welcome.
Hey, Deb.
Yeah.
Hey, Deb, real quick.
Yep.
If they think, having been through this, and I'm stopping my video again, having been through this, if they think tonight was something, wait, it's just now starting. So just wait till we get closer to picking somebody. It's it'll get a lot more.
Let's not scare Connor and Tyson away.
It will not be a 45-minute discussion. It will be much more, and a lot more input. Okay, so with that, Connor and Tyson, welcome. Fun board meeting. And with that, I adjourn the meeting at 8:15. 14.
Thanks, everyone.